All right, good afternoon, everyone. I call this meeting to order. Yes. First order of business is to approve the agenda. Make a motion. Second. First and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say. Next item, the member request to address the board. We have Mr. Alcadar and Mrs. Sandy Bean. Mr. Alcadar.
Well, I was chairman of the nominating committee, and I thought it would be appropriate to just do a quick review of the things that we did right, maybe some things that we could do a little better. Things that I thought went really well. The annual meeting out at the fairgrounds, just super. I noticed that we didn't have any long lines for registration. Voting on site, I think that adds to it for people who didn't remember to send in their ballots or whatever. They had a chance to come there and vote. Food, outstanding. The booths around the outside of the edge. I don't know who was responsible for that idea, but I thought that was great. Things that I really liked were the live wire, live line demonstrations, the EV cars. I like Brett's spot. I think it's important for the members to get to know who is running the show here. Brett, I think next year, if we could either have the directors in a similar spot or at least have a shirt or something that identified the directors, who they were and what district they represented. Bucket truck, that wasn't something that I was going to do. I don't like to be that high, but I noticed people were just having a great time riding that. So I thought whoever was responsible for that did just a super good job. Now, there were a few things about the whole process, the election and meetings and everything that I think that maybe we could do a little better job on, or things that I find that members find a little concerning. I kind of broke these down into just bullet points. Don't want to hammer anybody. These kind of things, as we change how we do our elections, we have to adapt and make changes as we go. But there were a few things, and I'm going to, not to slap anybody or anything, but one of the bullet points I had was, I have some concerns about election and integrity and ethics. I heard allegations, and I don't know who they were, of staff members endorsing particular candidates, directors campaigning for individual candidates, even directors carrying petitions for the additional member. I don't know that there's anything wrong particularly with those, but I was approached, and it was mentioned to me that we had a nominating committee member campaigning actively. And I thought about that, if we had a nominating committee person campaigning, then it looks like maybe the nominating committee is endorsing a particular candidate. And I didn't feel that that was appropriate. So I asked all the nominating committee members to refrain from being active in a campaign or having their name associated with the campaign for any particular member. One other thing that I saw in that I'll put into the same category was the consistency of the bylaws. I noticed that Jason had an outstanding looking bylaw, very attractive, more so than the rest of the people, the candidates. I would like to see us be consistent where every member has a similar look. I know Brett talked about that at one point. How do we handle that? I think that's important that we have consistency among all the members' bios for the election. Then the next thing that I wanted to just touch on, I enlisted it under bylaw issues, may not be just exactly right. As the nominating committee, we were told that we had to have our candidates in by X date. I know that doesn't exactly match up with the timetable when petition candidate can apply. So we ended up getting the announcement in the magazine that left out our petition candidate. And then we had 2 other monthly magazines that had the candidates' names and bios in them. You know, I heard about it. Well, we got different dates for different candidates. So maybe at some point we need to address that part of the bylaws. The other thing that came to my attention was one member had 2 different ballot designs. The names were in different orders on the ballots. I don't think that would, I mean, I don't know if that was intentional. I don't particularly care for that because I think every ballot ought to be identical that's sent out. I think it gives the impression, right or wrong, that somebody is trying to influence the vote by changing how the names are placed on certain ballots. A couple of biggies to me, and I'm not sure how we handle this. You know, the bylaws ask that the nominating committee make the decision on what's acceptable in a ballot and what's not, as far as eligibility or rejected ballots. We don't have that ability right now. Maybe it's just as simple as having SBS or whoever does our balloting bring a copy of the rejected ballots and why they were rejected, just prints off a copy for the board of directors. The other thing that came to my attention was that at least one member, at least 2 members, got 2 ballots sent to their address. Now, one member had a theory that if he could send them both back and they would both be counted because they should have caught that they were going to the same family when they sent them out. I was assured that that wasn't the case, that those ballots, even if both of them were returned, would only have been one of them would have only counted. But I think the fact that there were 2 sent out gives the impression that some things aren't right. Kind of a couple of other issues that affect the transparency and what people think. Give people something to talk about. You know, we had met with the nominating committee and the CEC met, and we asked that all communication between the SBS and the Decatur County REMC, that the president of both the CEC and the nominating committee be copied on. Clay and I, as far as I know, when we talked, neither one of us were ever received any correspondence. And I'm pretty sure there were some correspondence between SBS and the RMC, if it was nothing more than the time and where they were going to set up. I think one of the most concerning things of my other issue is that I've had multiple cases of nominating committee members saying that our co-op members called them to discuss a problem instead of the board members or directors. And I think there's an issue someplace when our members would rather talk to the nominating committee than their elected representatives. I don't know how we address that, but I think it's something that needs to be addressed in some manner to make our our co-op members comfortable talking to the board of directors. Cindy, anything that I missed? I mean, I'm pretty brief on these things. I'm throwing these out here for you folks to hear some of the issues that we think's out there that we have heard. And I'm not here to say that anything is 100% wrong or that it's really fixable, but it's something that you folks can, need to be aware of so that if something comes up, you can fix it or you could work on fixing this. The only other thing is I had a member of the nominating committee ask that we read a statement. He was unable to be here tonight. He asked that we read a statement. I'm going to let Sandy read that because I'm sure she reads prepared notes much better than I do.
We'll see. Decatur County REMC Board of Directors. The membership of this cooperative elected me to serve on the nominating committee. I accepted this position and fulfilled it to the best of my ability. In a meeting of the nominating committee, we were told to nominate one candidate to run against each director currently up for election and to certify the election, not count the ballots. However, the bylaws state differently. Section 3.06, nominating committee duties. The nominating committee shall count all ballots in any election and other voting matter with the assistance of REMC employees and other agents of the cooperative. This clearly states that the nominating committee count all ballots, employees and other agents assist the committee. Long before the election, I discussed my concerns with some members of the committee as well as some of the directors. I was reluctant about certifying an election when only seeing one ballot, my own. Everyone understood my concern and told me to do what I thought was right. Regretfully, I signed my name to certify the election because I felt it was expected of me. Therefore, I am officially withdrawing my name from the election certification. I cannot, in good conscience, validate information I have not seen and only told to be true. I'm not implying the numbers are wrong, just that I cannot confirm them. On the issue of finding a candidate to run for director, I spent many nights going through the names of member owners trying to find the most qualified individuals. I had narrowed the list down to a few names. Both Steve Kinker and Steve Nobby were on that list. I had talked to Steve Kinker first and he agreed to run in the election. I felt I was diligent and objective in finding a good candidate. Apparently, that was not the case. Some past and present directors, along with some REMC employees, went searching for another candidate and selected Steve Nobby. Mr. Nobby was also on my list, but what is the purpose of having a nominating committee if the committee is not allowed to fulfill its duties and others are undermining the committee's efforts? Above all, Mr. Kinker has been treated unfairly and is entitled to an explanation and an apology for this offensive situation. Thank you, Bill Whittlesbach.
Okay, I think that pretty much wraps up what we have to say to our presentation for this evening. We would entertain any feedback. In fact, we would encourage some feedback, but I mean, Sandy and I are leaving we're off the nominating committee, but I think we could forward information back or pass it around to the members who are still on it. So if there's any feedback, we'd sure entertain it.
One thing I'd like to thank is Albert for his leadership, and he brought all the nominating committee in early. He went through, and I'll never forget what his words were, is I want to make sure that we've eliminated as many, I don't know how you exactly worded Albert, but basically in any ways that people can say that it wasn't fair. And quite honestly, I
just wanted everybody, I didn't want to have the talking points out there. Because, you know, it causes division among the membership. It causes some distrust among certain members. And above all, it's important that our directors be trusted by the membership. And it's really disheartening to me to hear members say, well, I don't want to talk to my director because I don't think he'll listen to me, or I don't like the way he acts when I talk to him or disagree with him. You know, it's whether you agree with the membership or not. I sat on area plan and board of zoning appeals for several years, and everybody tells me that's a terrible job. But you know, I did not have people call and complain about what I did or what I said or anything. I had a few people call, and it was always, I could tell them why I voted that way, and it was I voted the same way regardless if it was Joe or Bill and I told people, I said, the worst thing you could do is come in and be my friend, because when you're my friend, you are held to a higher higher standard of performance. I said, nobody's going to tell me that Albert helped this guy out just because they're friends. If I helped somebody out, it was because they deserved the help that they were on the ride. So.
Anyone else? All right, guys, thanks.
Well, thank you. All right, if we hang around for a while, or I may hang around for a while and see what's going on. Otherwise, I can, I can leave. Remember the way home.
That's, well, you welcome to stay. Continue onward then. Actually, we'll just take a full moment, right?
Yeah, so first thing, safety moment, wanted to go over. It's interesting when you look at the statistics of these storms that we're talking about here tonight, because they weren't huge numbers as far as Sadie and all that, but they were very impactful for our crew. So we had 3 storms. You guys know we were here on 6/29 when it started. So it started Thursday night, then it went into Friday, then we got another one on Saturday, and we still played cleanup on Sunday and Monday. So 3 storms, crews worked all the way through Monday. It consisted of about 113 outages, affecting about 1,200 members of storms. You can see the Sadie scores there. Sadie, so what's interesting again is it's got to be over 34 to be classified as a major event. And they don't necessarily, the way that is calculated is it's a rolling. So you don't just add those 3 days. So it didn't get classified as a major storm, but you can definitely see that the numbers kind of grew up there. Main point of this being the safety moment is the crews did this, no safeties, no safety issues, no injuries. They were able to work safe. And again, I want to thank the crews because they did, right before July 4th, they spent a ton of time here. And so, again, they did it safely. You never want to push these guys. The goal isn't your first goal when you're doing these storms isn't to get everybody on as quickly as possible. You got to do it safely first. And then, it comes in. So anyways, wanted to thank all the crews, Pat, everybody that was involved in how we did this. It was kind of different because Pat kind of, once you get started on that first day, a lot of times we can change dispatchers, to another employee, but because it was constant, we got everything back up and it was a continuation, it didn't make a lot of sense to do that. So anyways, from a safety moment standpoint, again, we did it safely.
Good deal.
From a cool moment, we're going to take the time. Abby is our summer intern, and she is going to be wrapping up her work with us. So she would like to report out to the board. Presentation.
So I want to introduce Abby Hartman as our intern for the summer. Abby has done a job. She is a joy to work with. Abby is the daughter of Mark and Susan Hartman. They are our members. So we were able to find a member's daughter. And then, as you know, we did qualify for the Work and Learn program through the state of Indiana. And we want to thank Abby also, because in addition to the employer having to register and fill out forms, there was a piece that the intern had to do also. So thank you for doing that, Abby, because without her completing that, we wouldn't have qualified.
Okay, so as Jean said, my name is Abby Hartman. I grew up in Decatur County and I've been here my entire life. I am currently attending DePaul University and I'm going to be starting my junior year in about a month. And I am double majoring in psychology and communications. So the overview is talk about the description of my internship, why I chose RMC, the events and projects I participated in, knowledge and skills I gained from the internship, and my takeaway. So the description of the internship, it was a 12-week part-time internship for me. So I worked here 3 days a week and then I split my time at the hospital 2 days a week. I started at the beginning of June and I will go until next week, which is my last week. I got to participate in special events such as the annual meeting, create a wellness initiative for employees to participate in, meet with each department to learn how they contribute to REMC, and then help with any other HR-related duties such as onboarding and recording, record keeping. And then why I chose REMC. So I was looking for HR experience because I'm still unsure what I want to do after graduation, and I feel like it is something that is at every company. So I thought maybe I would look at it. And then my parents have been longtime members, so I thought it must be a good place. I often hear about and see REMC employees being involved in the community, and that is something that I wanted to be a part of, so I thought it'd be a great thing. And then the events and projects that I got to participate in. So I helped with the annual meeting that was early in my internship. There's a picture of this at the front. I got to stand to the side and tell people to go this way to go vote if they hadn't already. I created an informational presentation for Support Link, which is something that is helping with mental health for the office. And then I attended Girls Inc. Bingo for the office, and my mom went, and never done that before. Super cool, super fun. I attended the Women in Business Conference, which was also super fun. I went to it last year, so it was cool to see it from a different experience from a different company. I wrote board minutes for the month of June, so I knew what you guys did last month. I filled in for the front office ladies while they were gone because they were, Heidi went on the camping trip for REMC, and then there was another vacation. So then I got to learn how to take payments and everything. I got to talk to a bunch of customers. That was cool. I assisted in creating a spreadsheet for HR jobs and responsibilities, which there is a lot of jobs and responsibilities that you wouldn't think about. And then I was rewriting and editing job descriptions for some alignment. So then the knowledge and skills I gained from this. I gained some interpersonal skills. Going to the Women in Business conference was really cool because we all got in a circle and then there was another circle on the outside and we all had to just talk to people, which seems intimidating at first, but then you realize everyone's just there to talk and everyone's having fun with it. So it's not that bad. So it's cool to just get to talk to a lot of people during this internship. I improved my skills on Excel greatly because I had a lot of different short projects that I had to type in stuff quick, and completely different from Google Sheets. Excel does not save your stuff automatically. Figure that out the hard way. And then I learned how to write board minutes. And then I learned how meetings are ran because I got to sit in a couple leadership meetings, which was cool. And then I learned how to create a health initiative, which I'm hoping to send out next week to the employees. And then I learned how the front office ran. So I gained skills in talking to customers, answering phones, and how to process payments, which was something that I had never done before. So that was nice. And then my takeaway. So HR is a department that I would consider working again after this internship. And then I would consider it a path that I would follow in the future, something I would definitely look at. I love working with everyone and getting to meet customers. It was a really good experience because I really loved my job last year at the foundation. So I'm happy that I also really liked everyone that I worked with this year too. The internship also showed me that REMC had so much to offer employees, and I would consider applying here or another co-op in the future. Yeah, thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Abby? Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you. Yeah, good luck.
All right. For your information. Do you have any,
I do have one of the action items.
Okay.
And it was
oh,
just, so see if this works for. If this works for what we would put out on the internet. Girls Up Front and Jason kind of worked on this and talked through, what they were gonna offer up on the sheet and all that. So anyway, you don't have to let me know right away, but feedback on that would be great.
So this isn't, I don't know.
It is not because, the action item was help, you guys wanted to kind of see it, so.
Is this a good?
Yeah, sure.
Is there to this that anyone is aware of or something that we wouldn't want to include?
Should it say maybe here a list of internet providers who may service various committees who
Entire to
actually serve if they aren't?
Definitely had that.
I wouldn't commit that these are the providers. That's not our job.
That last sentence was to sort of address that, but I think adding may in there's fine.
To see if, yeah, that's a big word. That's good. Maybe they should be like in alphabetical order, so it looks like you're not advocating for one over another. I don't think that's the business we want.
Yeah, those are easy.
Everybody good with it?
No, you don't need a vote. I was just.
What's that?
There was another provider down at the Woodward Fair.
Yeah, as we learn of any, or if you guys learn of any, let us know. We'll just.
Another one that they came. See, I didn't talk to him, but I seen him, but I'll find out here. What meetings are.
Okay. Let us know. We'll add it.
Is that one you wanted to add, Suzanne?
That was just on the list coming out from the Decatur County Commissioners. list.
What was the name again?
When? Communications,
TWNN,
TWN, is that what it is? Is
TWNN, I think.
that on there?
I don't know if it's on.
No, it's not.
Oh, okay. They had TDS also.
S Communications.
Is Frontier? Pioneers in the Frontier. We have.
I mean, that's a list I think we can start with and add accordingly if.
Country too. Yeah, Xfinity's listed on the Westport zip code area also. Under the 47283. I'm just going off the list that Rick Nobby provided to us. There's also one called Internet Communication Inc. Available for the 47240, may be available for that zip code that's listed on the commissioner's site.
Is that list available from some county organization online?
This is just what Rick gave
I
us.
know, but are the commissioners publishing something or economic development or, I don't know. I mean,
They have it up at the EDC. I don't know. I haven't
would
verified.
it be easier just put on here? You can also contact EDC, get the website up there. I mean, because we're probably not going to catch every single one.
I'll check with Brian to see if he's
I'm
okay.
sure it's published somewhere where people have access to it.
If he's okay, I'll add something at the bottom. It says contact EDC office and I'll put their number on there.
Are we still in for you?
We are.
So there are several entries, Matt, in the check register this month for NGEN settlements. So I assume that that's a solar true up. And that is a yearly. How often is that? What does that dollar amount represent?
That is correct. Every June, there is a true up of solar accounts. So after the June billing, anybody that has a credit on solar gets a check cut to them.
So we're carrying that credit is rolling throughout the year. And so at the end of the 12-month period, if you're getting a check,
Have a credit,
Okay.
yes,
All
they
right.
get a check cut to you.
So not everyone's going to show up on the list, obviously.
Just pretty much anybody that's a good producer. And I don't even know how many there were.
There were several. I mean, actually 20 or 30.
There's a couple dozen.
Page 16, 7, there's a bunch of them.
It's all done that one month.
17, 18.
Anything else?
Airwave Network LLCs.
What's that on? Check register.
No, the internet,
Oh, shoot, sorry. Airwave.
Airwave.
It's an hour.
I don't know anything about it. Several checks issued on the check register for the annual meeting. Will we get a summary or cost of the annual meeting, or is that the plan put together?
We can. So surveys are out and we'll usually do like an annual meeting wrap up of
I
all
don't
that.
have anything urgent, but it's something I'd like to see.
Sure.
The goal is to have that for the September board meeting, the annual meeting kind of wrap up.
Could you explain the Ritchie legal expenses or seemed like that jumped out at me.
Is that on check register?
Yes.
What page?
Sorry.
Page 19.
I'd have to pull the invoice. I mean, we use her quite a bit for a lot of stuff.
It's just looked like the month of June. Was quite, yeah, apparently that's just the date, 6/15, so.
Yeah, yeah. No, I can pull the invoice.
Okay. You get back.
Yep.
Can live.
Anything else for your information? Good to go on? So we will. Next item, approve the previous month's meeting minutes. There is a new revision that was sent out, so if you haven't updated it, you can do that now, but some minor changes from what was originally sent out.
think I've updated Steve, but under the election of officers, I see the section for the chairman, vice chairman. See part of the section for the secretary, treasurer, but I don't see the vote information.
Are you looking at the Rev 2?
Yeah, it's up here. Is that because there was only one person nominated? Yeah. You talking under here?
Yeah, but I mean, I've updated my call to order 4 times and I still see my original information. Now I had some notes on it. Would that prevent it from updating?
Do you have a Rev 2 underneath number 6?
Sorry. That's what the original, I'm sorry. Retract that.
But I don't think there was anything there changed. If I remember right, Robert didn't make you guys vote because there was only one nomination. If I remember right. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, that might be what he's talking about.
Need a motion. Approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the previous minutes.
Revision to with.
Revision 2.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Favor say aye. Opposed, the same. Revision to meeting minutes have been approved. You're up next, Brad, with the CEO update.
Yeah, so just a few updates from just work that's been going on in our project. So financial management plan, Matt and I have been working together just to kind of not only re-educate ourselves, but re-go over the stuff that we had presented last year. So obviously we're going to talk about that tonight. Broadband business models, again, we have a team developed. We'll go over a presentation tonight on that. Spent quite a bit of time on that. New digester load, just to let you know, kind of, we don't have a whole lot of information other than the fact that we know what the load is now, and we do know that there's going to be roughly, I think it's almost a mile of 3-phase rebuild that's going to be required for it. So it will be a pretty large size, and I think some of the notes were in Matt's stuff as far as what that's going to look like as far as a cash outlay. A lot of unanswered questions. They're really still in the design phase on this, so we don't know exactly when they want it to go live. We're thinking it's probably beginning of next year. So anyways, not a whole lot of new developments other than we do know that it's going to require some pretty major rebuild. Good project, but it is going to require an investment. And then solar information on the website. So we did add a project from the conversation from the members that visited us last month. Essentially, we have everything rebranded. So we were able to use another co-op's information. We got it all rebranded. We just received it today. So we're kind of going through that to make sure it's all right. And then we had User actually redo the videos with our names on it. So we were basically able to reuse all the information and not have to create anything new. It's a ton of information. It answers a lot of the questions. We added like 3 for frequently asked questions that pertain specifically to some of the questions that they were asking us. And so I think it's going to be a good addition to our website. Like I said, we got to wait until we just got the information. So now we got to proof it. Once we get it proofed, we should be up. So I'd say we're probably within a couple of weeks of doing that. So I'll let y'all know when that goes live.
Have those 2 gentlemen been involved in that process?
It has not yet. As soon as we get done proofreading it, I will send it over to them. All right, company, any questions on projects or anything from the CEO report? Just stop me if you do. So a little bit of metrics from last month. So June metrics, basically, it was about 5% cooler than our 5-year average. Can't feel that today, I guess, but. And then our CCD, which is what we normally track during the summer months, obviously you can see it was quite a bit below, so it's following the temperature. And you look for our purchased energy over there on the right-hand side, highlighted. We were basically down about 4.8% if you compare it to our 5-year average. And then demand was about 6.5% lower. So again, a lot of our load follows weather and temperatures, and that's why we show it. If you look at the, so this is retail sales to budget. You can see this is throwing some of the financials kind of goofy just because of the fact of, and Matt will get into some of that, but you can see, if you look at our overall sales, we're essentially a little over 3% under our budget, even though you have residential at 13%. Well, it's because right here is transmission and commercial is picking up some of that. Again, if you look at the overall, we're at 3.19, dropped a little bit, but again, residential is single phase is way down. You have some commercial and specifically IPT that's picking all that up. Daily, Sadie, you can see the storms, the high wind storms that came up that I just talked about. That red line is that statistical, the way that it's that threshold where you would consider it, the government considers it a major storm. So I think that number is, it's 30 and we're right about that 16. So we're about halfway there on the one day. But you can kind of see I think last month and maybe, I think last month we were talking about how calm it was. And then literally that night we got hit with 3 storms in a row. Lost consumer hours. So for June, that was, the big stormy year that we had, obviously. So that draws up our 5-year average. So you can see to our 5-year average, we're well below in lost consumer hours. And then in outages, again, we were still down just because of this 1 year really inflating the average. Then if you look at lost consumer by cause, and so remember this is specifically June, so it's not going to have the last day or so of our 3-day outage there. But you can see the major causes, although not a huge number, were trees and other, and then equipment. And that's really due to the wind, the high wind storms is where you see that at. Equipment's normally like a broken, a line that has broke. Something on top of the lines broke, pole broke, things like that. Crew visits. So some positive information on here. We have done some crew audits. Pat is still scheduled to get the crew audits. We had scheduled to do 12 of them this year. So our plan is to still get those 12 in. You can see we're making some movements on that. And then our near miss and corrective actions, we are still getting those in, and our safety committee is reviewing those and putting in corrective actions where necessary. Any questions from any of the metrics or any of the projects or anything we got going on from a operations standpoint?
You had noted in there, read that we were going to have you have all the work in from the companies regarding operations building. And it says that we're going to get a report about that. So you have all those now. What's the time frame of that? When will we see that?
Probably the tenant. We've gone back and asked for a couple of revisions on a few of them, and then we're going to meet with all the linemen and get their take, and then bring it forward.
So before year end?
Oh yeah. I would expect, if not next month, following month. So, because Clay was there the other day, and we went through stuff, and we're going to have them make a few changes, and then we'll get a lot closer in. We're going to have a line to look at it then, and then.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
No, we saw it on there. There was no due date. That's
No.
date was July, and you've already got all your stuff.
Yes,
How many, there were several different ones, and you kick out several, and then you keep a couple, and
Sure.
yeah.
we were nitpicking on trying to incorporate one into the other. It was a little bit time consuming, but it was
We're,
a good process.
we're moving right along.
Any other questions from a project standpoint?
We're good? Right, thanks, Brett. Matt, I just update.
In general, we have another $250,000 in our net plant. That's the, every month we usually get something there. We work every month. The A and the B, you can see it's higher AR. We have the month picks up because the summer. So got more AR, you got more power bill, you got more across the board. That's probably the best way to put that. Any questions on the balance sheet? Statement of operations, we are over in our revenue and in our power cost, which that's tracker is not part of the budget, so it shows up there as the tracker is now greatly positive. We are under in our controllable expenses year to date. I don't believe that will probably maintain throughout the course of the year because some are over, some are under. I mean, there's nothing really that sticks out to me there that's a major thing that, hey, this is going to go one way or the other. So everything else is, I mean, pretty close. The biggest thing is the gross margin is under and controllable expenses are under here today. I mean, that's really the two takeaways I have from that. If we keep having very low power usage from, I mean, we're 13% under in residential, that makes a big difference in our gross margin.
But can we talk about this screen for a minute?
And yes,
So I'm having a hard time with the operating revenue number as related to power costs and the gross margin, but my understanding is since it's single phase being the one that's the loser right now, and transmission is the winner, since our margin on transmission isn't near, that's what's causing this. Because this is giving me some heartburn.
if the percentages were flipped the other way, the margins would be better, yes.
So when we've been talking about the tractor's gonna catch up, you know, because we're paying a higher tracker this month because the tracker went positive with Hoosier, but we're still, ours is always retroactive. Like we're always trying to true up to the Hoosier tracker, so we're a little bit retroactive, right? So we've talked about over the course of the last few months, we're gonna make
Catch
up.
some ground by the end of the year. We'll probably make up some ground this week.
Right, with the,
But I mean, if we have a super hot August, we'll make up a bunch of ground too.
so I guess for me, and because I probably don't understand it like I should, $664,000. What would that take? Like, is there a scenario where that amends itself? Heat
Heat could do it.
usage, the tracker catches up. What else? I mean, what else is there?
The biggest thing will be usage is do it.
I think there is.
I don't know that we'll get all the way there, no. I mean, we're so far under.
But see, that's what scares me. We're gonna have a discussion about something that scares me more in a little bit. And is this a sustainable? Like what happens if it doesn't? What if use doesn't go up? What if the tracker doesn't catch up that much?
So that's always
I mean,
possible. If we have a very mild summer all summer and it turns out that way.
Continues, give me the worst case scenario for the end of the year.
Worst case scenario. I mean, we'll still have a margin. We just won't have as much margin.
We will still have a margin in your opinion.
We have a margin right now. I mean,
Yeah, but we're way behind.
we are behind, yes, but
But if we
still have
continue
margin.
to eat into that, I mean, is there a scenario where we don't have a margin?
I think it'd be awful tough to have zero margin, but I mean, yeah, I mean, we could have lots of things. I mean, tornado could come through and have zero margin. I mean, there's a lot of things that can really screw things up, but
Yeah, but I'm talking more of a
Long
usage and power bill, not storm restoration and stuff that we don't have any idea.
is there a chance then that we'll have no margin? I would say no.
Okay.
I mean, we're gonna have something. It's just a matter of what.
Yeah, we're breaking down the track. Do you mind if I add a little?
No, it's fine. I mean, we looked at some of that today. I mean, you gotta think though too, the tracker didn't start catching anything really until now. I mean, you had the first 4 months was on the old rates. The tracker is always a month behind.
Right.
So June is really the first month where it starts to make up ground.
Our tracker,
Yes.
because we were paying the higher tracker up to that point because.
Yes.
the Hoosier tracker went
The
up.
Hoosier tracker,
Under Q2.
We're always a little behind. That is. So when it's falling, we're collecting a little more. When it's rising, we're collecting.
Well, I guess that's part two of my question. Let's say we stay on this path. It changes a whole lot. We ride this out to the end of the year. Margins are much lower than we had expected, but we'll have some margin. Then as the tracker goes the other way, hopefully, the Hoosier tracker goes the other way, we will make up ground then for a few months.
Yes.
So we're gonna make some of that, we'll get some of that back. But it won't be in the same calendar year.
But yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was, the predictions right now aren't that it's going down.
No.
There's a few other nuances with the tracker that's happening here too. So the way that tracker works is it's going to say you're either under collecting or over collecting according to what's in your rates and what the power bill is. So let's just say there's $100,000 we're under collected, right? It's going to take that $100,000 and it's going to look at what sales are out there left for the year. And it's going to divide that over the sales. We're 13% under in residential, that's huge, right? So it's going to spread out that 100,000 over not as many units towards the end of the year. It's going to force our tracker up.
Because you're gonna estimate usage from here out.
Yes.
Just the 13%.
If our usage keeps coming in lower,
You're gonna spread that out over
less and less time, yeah.
You're taking the same amount of money to collect, either under or over collected, and you have less units to spread.
So forecasting from here out, we're gonna carry forward that 13%.
Yes. We had a very mild winter in general.
Yeah.
And we've had a fairly mild summer so far too. So it's kind of,
So not exactly what you just said, though. So we're not going to forecast, we're not going to bring down the budget according to that 13%. What I'm saying is when we estimated because I think that's what you
flow
said,
through the
right?
tracker though. It's going to pick it up the remainder of the,
But the tracker has to estimate usage, right?
That's budget.
but that's the budget. It goes
You're
on.
not gonna reduce that.
No.
No.
That's what I thought you said.
But we had, so let's just say 6 months of the
You're
year
gonna spread what we're short over the next.
Yes.
over the next, but
If
for
ever
the month prior to, it was wanting to spread it over more, which we didn't have more to spread it over. So it's actually doing what it's supposed to do, which is to smooth this all out. So I feel comfortable that that's going to be part of it. And then the other big part
Will be
is
under budget, yes. I do think the margin will be under. I mean, we've had such a long time where the heat, it wasn't as many heating degree days in the winter. It hasn't been as many cooling degree days in the summer. I mean, now granted, if August turns out to be the scorcher they say it could be, that can all flip pretty quick.
So, I mean, candidly, in my tenure here, we've really not been in this situation, I would say. This is kind of new territory. At what point do we pull a lever to mitigate some of this, or is there a lever that we pull?
I think to a certain extent, that's what we're
we're going to be talking about.
talking about. That is the lever, yes. That is.
A general question. From the outside looking in, you would think, oh, they need to review their rates. If you didn't know what was going on, and this is the only thing you're seeing. We just did the cost of service study. So explain to me how we can do the cost of service study saying residential, I mean, we had some changes, but very, very, very small changes. How do we just pay for that cost of service study and sit through hours of listening and debating that cost of service study, and then we see this?
Cost of service study doesn't take it into track.
It's all the tracker.
That's the
And
whole point of a track.
Tracker is the reason for the negativity.
2 months ago.
Big part of it, yeah. And the fact that IPT, so if you look at IPT, the margin compared to, so we're 13% under budget. So it's inflating the sales number. So you're looking at it as we're only 3% underneath our sales projection. But the margin that you get because of the difference to cost to serve between those two classes, residential and IPT, the margin's way more in this one. So just because we're up in this one in sales, which makes the whole picture look like we're really close to sales, you're not picking up all that extra margin. So you're picking it up in KWH, but you're not in margin. That's the biggest driver.
Because that margin doesn't have any cost to cover.
Correct.
So the tracker's going to eventually do what it needs to be doing eventually.
But it still may not recover.
I don't think it's going to recover.
I don't think it's gonna get there all the way. Is it gonna be as big as it is at the end of the year? I don't think so. No. It looks worse now.
Because part of this is sales, residential sales.
Residential sales is 13% under.
Yes.
That is the
So
main,
it's not gonna do anything about that.
rates have nothing to do with that either, because it's all, you're not,
The way
rates are built
The
on,
way our rates are designed, if we don't sell power to the residential, we don't have a demand charge to keep that balanced. This money just doesn't come in. That's,
yeah, there is no demand on residential, so that he's exactly right.
there's no 4-part rate or 3-part rate. It's, if people don't use power, we don't collect money.
The other thing we're not talking about though too here, that's going to help, we're 3 months into the first, April 1st was our first new bill from Hoosier, which we know had a little bit of a drop there. So we have 3 months of that. We've still got the rest of the year that we're going to be picking up
Yes.
that extra amount. That's going to help.
Because, I mean, to Suzanne's question, if you remember, Hoosier dropped base rates, lowered base rates, which is what went into the cost of service study. But then we got this tracker that no one forecasted the tracker was going to be this high.
I mean, we budgeted, we were gonna need money in the first half of the year. And we have, I mean, we knew that we were gonna have a stretch here where we were gonna be short on cash.
But you also got to remember, it takes 1 or 2 weeks of weeks like this. We could pick up that 300, we could pick up half of that in a month. I mean, that's the
question I was trying to get to earlier. Like,
I've seen that happen.
Yeah, if it's miserable, not the whole month of August, I mean, it could swing massively. in the direction.
Not the whole amount, but
No, it won't make it all at once, but I guess it could if it's 110 degrees.
but as we tick through the year and the tracker gets closer, we could pick some of it.
We will pick some of it up.
And then
It's not good. We will
like
pick some of that.
24, when the tracker hopefully starts to go down, we will gain on it there a little bit also, because we will technically be still collecting what we had already paid previously.
correct.
Yeah.
And it's actually, so Matt and I were talking today, and it's actually what we were advocating for when we were talking about rates and what we were going to do with the Hoosier change. And we said, let's just not touch base rates, not touch anything. Our trackers, they're designed to move and go with the rates. There's a lot of unknowns in our industry right now with these trackers and gas power, coal power price. All these prices are going all over the place. You can visit the MISO, it's swinging all over the place today. It will tomorrow. Tomorrow they're predicting a max gen alert. That's going to drive prices in the thousands, right? So we had said originally, let's don't touch base rates. Let's don't touch. If we get a high margin, we have a high margin. Let's don't touch it until we see this year play out. Risk was mitigated by that. I'm glad we did not do anything with any type of base rate, trying to suck in some of that tracker into our base rates. I think that would have been a mess. Because it's doing what it's designed to do. I think we are going to be short just because you have, there's no way to recover from 13 all the way. 13%. We're already into July. There's no way. And we actually budgeted very, very conservatively this year.
We've
Very
been
conservative.
turning back usage every year pretty well.
And if you look at the temperatures, we have been running, this isn't the first month I've been in here saying we were cool.
Exactly.
I mean, it's been that way almost every month.
Really cool.
Yeah. You talk 1 or 2% below a 5-year average, doesn't seem like a lot. It's a bunch when it comes to electricity, especially depending on
June, it
what
was
month.
5%. I mean, that's a big month from a,
Yep.
if the temperature outside is 68 at night, people's air conditioners don't run. If it's 75, they do.
I think the things we're seeing though is the mitigation, what we did with leaving the rates alone was a good idea.
To Suzanne's question, it's not as bad as it was.
Yeah.
You also had, I know this isn't related to this statement, but on the balance sheet, you had a prepaid deal of $100,000. I should ask you about it when we were back there. Is that some kind of carryover or Hoosier credit or something? It was something that we didn't have before. It's like $160,000. It's on the balance sheet.
Like not the high level.
Yeah, this says prepayments and it went from 10,000 in May to 126,000 in June. Is that is that something related to, because what else are we prepaying besides Hoosier?
That's what that is.
That's just a carryover.
Jason, where are you looking? What are you
It's
looking?
on the balance sheet,
Financial, the
prepayments. Current assets.
you're talking about.
Oh, the $10,000 difference.
No, 116,000.
I see what you're saying. Okay.
I think that's what it is, but.
We'll find out, sure, but I can, I'm not gonna tell you exactly what it is, because I don't honestly know exactly what that is.
It was an anomaly, that's why I asked.
No, this is awesome discussion because this is the first time in the 6 years I've been here that financials look like this. Not to mention on top of it, we've spent more money in the last 2 years on plant to catch up because we didn't do anything the first 3 years of the construction work plan. He's going to go through some of this, but with the transformers and then catching up on that, there's, which we knew, I mean, it was planned. It's just, as Jason was saying, a little bit of uncharted territory for some of us that are new. But I bet you we feel a lot better next month after these, and they're even predicting tomorrow and Friday to be hot.
That's 7 more days in July.
Yeah. Don't say that, Jason. You have a max gen alert.
We need to sell more, but by the way, we have a max alert for tomorrow and Friday, which means we met on 8 hours. Okay. Sure.
Sell more, but not
That much week that we're solving.
No, yeah, I know. Anyway, all right, thanks.
Right. Can we hit the cash flow real quick?
Yep. Okay. In general, cash is a tick higher because we borrowed money on our line of credit, and that's how it fell out at the end of the year. I mean, that's, otherwise cash would be zero.
Anything you wanted to cover on any of these?
No, I mean, in general, it kind of shows you where we are comparatively and versus I mean, we're ahead of the 5-year average, so. I mean, next.
So I got for you.
All right.
he's gonna present something different. Boil it all down. You ready for that? Adam?
We are. Yeah.
So I can kind of just, I'll tee it up here. So the financial management, I tried to go back on the presentations that we've shown before, and the draft plan that we showed before. And Matt and I were kind of talking the last couple of days, and we really, to simplify this a little bit, and we're really just looking for discussion. We don't need any approval at this point. Matt's going to kind of go over, boil down what the big things are and why we would do what we're asking. If I can get to the slides. Ready, Matt?
Yep. So in general, with the financial management plan, we're looking for the guardrails. If we stay between these lines, RMC is gonna be fine. If you set the rule, we want to be here, here, and we target here. We'll do that. I mean, give us where you want us to hit and we'll do that. Now we ask for the guardrails because, hey, some things come up sometimes. If a storm passes through or something, as we just discussed, the weather changes for the year and we don't have near the date, that could change things. But we'll still stay within the overarching goal of what we're trying to get. So, plus we don't have everything that happens doesn't have to be, each poll doesn't have to be discussed on a regular basis, if that makes sense there. And I guess the biggest thing is, yes, so long as we stay between the boundaries, the board is good that we're between the boundaries. And I think in general, we will, my thoughts are is if anything is ever going to deviate from that, that's when we would ask for action. Plus, it'll allow me to plug in all the financial management plans and models that are out there and use numbers that the board says, hey, use this number. And that does help me as well.
Tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready. I mean, in general, poles and wires and our capital credits, we pay that with our margin. And one of the tools we have that can level that out is debt. I mean, we can, in general, we have a big project coming out of the Westport sub. In general, we can either pay for fixing that up out of margins or we borrow money to make that happen. And that smooths it out over time. In general, debt's a tool. It's the same as I always said, debt's like a shotgun. As long as you don't point it at your head, you're fine. So overall, the goal is a stable rate for our members, to be stable for our rates, stable with our reliability, and fair to our current and future members. So when we build a new, when we do this 1 mile outside of the Westport sub, that stuff should last for 45, 50 years. We can pay for all that right now in cash, which means that everybody on our lines today pays for all that. Or if we borrow part of that and we pay it back over 30 years, then the people in the future pay for some of that with their rates. So it spreads the cost from today's people paying for everything to the people who actually use it paying for part of it. That is one of the advantages to borrowing money with this. Plus, we can borrow money very, very cheaply. I mean, the other thing is as you have I look at it as a way to level off your peaks and your valleys. I mean, we want to be as level over time as we can be with many things. I mean, in general, the 3 years of doing very little plant work and then last year's big pop and this year's big pop, I think it would be better to have a level number. We are going to do X dollars every year. We know what we're going to do. We go into that year that this is what we got to work with and this is what it is. And we target a certain amount every year to make sure we're going to maintain what we have. And we know that if anything's going to be outside of that, well, then that requires special reasoning or it's got to come off a year in the future or then it's not a normal project. It is kind of how I would describe it. Does that, I mean, any questions on, Brett, do you have anything you want to add to that or?
No, I mean, a big part of this is these are the core goals that we're trying to hit. I mean, does everyone agree with these goals as far as the board? Because if not, we'll do whatever we're trying to create a plan here that's the consensus of the board. And Matt and I will run on the road. And if we think we're gonna hit a guardrail, we're gonna come and ask you, right? And say, hey, this is interest rates are 9%. Probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense to be borrowing a whole lot of money right now, right? There's gonna be those hiccups in the road. And I think the main thing we're looking for here is do we all agree that these are the common goals? Are we missing anything? Is there something in there you don't agree with? I mean, we could build this business to where it doesn't have to be state, right? We believe from a management and leadership standpoint that people don't so much care about, I mean, they do care about their bill, right? But they want it to be the same, right, going through. What I don't think they would want is your bill goes up 25% and then it drops. And then 2 months later it goes up, and that's what you'd have to do depending on when projects and things came up. So stable rates is what we believe is very, very important. It's something that Hoosier drives for too. Current members and future members fairness, that's a big one, right? That's where debt comes in. That's where, do we want current members to pay for everything that future members are going to use? Or do we want to spread it out? I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer. It's just, that's the goal, right? That's our strategy. Continuous improvement on reliability. It's exactly what Matt said, right? We're going to spend a certain amount of money. You guys are going to hopefully look to us to say, we expect every dollar that we give you every year is utilized on the most effective reliability projects. I'm asking that of my team, right? And then return money to members. This is capital credits. This is, I don't think it is a liability, but I also believe that who we are, it's why we're a co-op, right?
I mean, in general, these are our levers we get to use. We can do less CapEx, which is poles and wires. We can reduce our capital credits. Well, that means we don't need as much margin. If we want to do CapEx and return money, we either got to have higher rates or we got to borrow. Now, borrowing has to be paid back, but it smooths things out. That's effectively what it does. I mean, I guess these are the levers to pull. I mean, so to your question, which lever am I advocating pulling? I'm advocating pulling the debt lever. It is what I'm advocating.
It's the same discussion we've had 100 times. You're either going to borrow money from the bank or you're going to borrow it from the members.
And my personal opinion is interest right now, we can borrow money from at 4%, a little over that as of today. If the interest rates was 12%, I tell you, I think we need to get it from our members. I mean, there's a level of interest at which I say, I don't think that's a good idea. I think 4% is still pretty good money. That's why I advocate borrowing it.
I think Fed raised rates again today.
I know that hasn't been reflected quite yet, but it will be. Yes.
But part of that equation too, and I'm not arguing anything that's up there, but part of that equation, I think that we personally fail to ensure to our members is also controlling expenses, spending their money wisely. And that part of it, we kind of forget sometimes to add to the equation for our members. They see us borrowing, but they also need to be reassured. And then it comes out one time a year during the budget when we all debate it and dispute it. Also spending money wisely and controlling our expenses. That's when I sent that email out is, we kind of get that part of the equation with us too.
And I think we look at that part of the equation every year when CFC puts out their KRTAs. I would argue that based off those, we do better than the national average.
I would suggest that we look at this every day, every decision we make every single day. And if you look at our KRTAs, we're in a damn good spot. We're doing better than the means state average, and we'll see the KRTAs just came out. I can tell you from a controllable expense, we're doing a lot more with a lot less.
And I don't disagree with that, but to Suzanne's point, it's incumbent upon us that we always try to do better. And I'm not saying you don't. But when you look at the round number that was in your email today, relative to the whole budget, it's pretty small. It's pretty minor.
It is, but you can't ever give up those dollars.
But it's a big dollar. When you look at that amount, it's a big dollar amount. So I think there's a balance of the two. We need to be very, very frugal and very, very, we've all got a fiduciary responsibility to make sure we're taking care of our members. That's our responsibility. And I'm not suggesting we're not, but that needs to be, we don't want to park that way off to the side and just look at some of the other things. I mean, that's something.
I guess I feel like that's a given. I didn't feel like, to me, I mean, I'm a member. I mean, Jenny in accounting's a member. I mean, we watch that every day. I mean, it's our money too. So
How do we show this though? Because this does come up a lot and I get the point. I totally do. But how do we show that? We do KRTAs. We are in a really good position from a cost standpoint. I mean, every day we're
is there
talking
things
about.
that we can find. We're always looking for things. I mean,
Sure.
if we see something that we think's a waste, I mean, I have no problem marching into Brett's office and say, I don't think this is where we should spend our money.
Should that be listed as a goal is my point. Should that be,
Crystal do that?
I mean, because we don't, we take it as a given.
Yeah.
Maybe that needs to be I don't know how else to, we look at overall spending in our budget, the $5 million that we spend in our budget. That's kind of what I consider controllable. Being a co-op, you don't have a choice to be frugal. You have to be frugal. So how do I show that? How do I, other than looking at benchmark? It is a part of this equation. There's no doubt about it. But we take it as a given. It's not really a lever. We're always pulling that lever.
So back to Brett's question earlier, is there anyone in here that does not agree with those goals? They're stated. It's good with that. That's the time.
And if you have things that you think we could do differently that would save money, I mean, I'd say we're all.
That only comes out during the budget that we vocalize what you can do. That, I mean, once the budget's done, it's pretty much a done deal, but I mean, other than budget time, that's where, we only talk about that once a year and we talk about this continuously.
But we do want members to know that it doesn't show up in here because it's a given in everything we do. Maybe it should. Maybe that should be in here. We're doing it. I don't know how else to.
I mean, for me, that's kind of like the safety deal, right? That's the given. We want to do everything. Like, should that be on here? Well, you do all these things, but I don't want you to cut corners and do it unsafe. You already know that. Like, that's not something that's a given, right?
It's very apparent when you're not paying attention to the cost, in my opinion. It shows up in your KRTAs. What would show up in there very clearly. Anything else to addition on these?
Slide.
I know, I wanted to make sure that we got discussion going on, because these goals drive everything. Sure. From here on out.
So one of the targets is, what is our capital credit retirement cycle? Currently, our target has been 30 years. We're roughly at 28 years right now because we've paid back quite a few capital credits the last couple of years. We're recommending a target of 28 with a range of 25 to 30. from everything I have read and heard, you don't want to go over 30 or you open yourself up to other risks. So I guess my view is that if you're under 30 and you have some year where something goes seriously wrong, that is a lever that you have available to you. It's part of the smoothing out and making yourself to not have to do something you don't necessarily want to do because you have some flexibility. So that's why Brett and I talked about this today, and it was, if we shoot for 28, you've got some room, something. I mean, if God forbid a tornado went through and wrecked our system, I mean, we're not going to have money to hand back for capital credits for a while after that.
Can you give me a feel for what 28 versus 30 does annually?
It's about $100,000 a year. It's from like 500 and some to 600. So I don't have the exact number.
No, just ballpark, that's
It's gonna be there.
But when we do our calculation, today our calculation is, here's how much we owe. Divide it out by 30 and it gives you a number. What we're saying is we're gonna target 28. It's gonna have to give back a little bit more than what,
But
Other
we've
than
given
these-
back more than that for several years.
correct,
Otherwise, we wouldn't be where we are. We'd still be 30.
correct. Yeah,
But
we've been,
that is still a lever that the board can shift on an annual basis. I mean, if we have a year where we have great margins, that's, you send back more. I mean, that is the lever to pull to give more money back to the members. If we have a year, we have great margins and we collect more money than we need, give back more capital credits. And we hand it right back right away.
Which we've done.
Yes. And that is that lever. If you get too much in margins, you hand it back in capital credits. I mean, what is everyone's thoughts on, I mean, I see from the thing, my theory was 25, and Brett says 30, so.
we arm wrestled and I won, so we went to 28. We did, and our philosophies are just a little bit different on it. There's not a right or wrong answer, it's just, it's what we believe.
Crystal just said years ago, we used to be at 25.
Yep. And we're in a good spot. If you look at our capital credit care TA compared to everyone, and there's like 5 different ones that categorize capital credits, we're in pretty good shape. I mean, we're right in the median. We're right where, in my opinion, the sweet spot is. We did get off track there for a year or two, back I think in 16, but then we've got back up the last 2 years.
I mean, what is everybody's opinion on that? I mean,
And essentially, just so you know, the longer this goes out, the less cash you need, the less money you're giving back to your members. The quicker this is, the more money you're giving back to your members quickly, but somebody's got to pay for that.
well, the faster you return it, the more current members have to pay to return the money.
True. 30 years is always kind of that traditional number because typically that aligns with the debt and typically kind of very closely aligned. Well, it's more that, right? It's depreciation in the debt.
It's that, plus it's, if you keep it much longer than that, lawyers will start to serve it.
This is only,
The fairness of members, the older members,
Yes, it's part of fairness. as
the
well.
younger
Yes,
members. That's only, you got a gap there.
yes.
Some older members, should they be paying for the new stuff that's
Yes.
on there for the new?
It's the same thing with borrowing. Should the current members pay for future members, and the capital credits should the old members pay for the current members? I mean, that's,
And I think our policy today,
and
basically,
anytime we have roughly 3 generations all at once,
Yeah.
3 generations there that make that up. 'Cause you go back 30 and you go forward 30.
and this is only Decatur.
Well, I mean, that the board has to decide from Hoosier standpoint if they want to pass through all that, but I think in general, that's what has been.
I mean, we're only talking.
yes.
We're not
Yes.
talking about Decatur. Hoosier, the last couple of years has been a direct pass through. We get the money from Hoosier, we hand it back.
To your point though, Jason,
No.
there's a lot of other things that we want to put in a financial policy. Matt and I were kind of talking about, let's just boil it down to the big 3, the things that actually are huge, right? So that's the 3 we're going to talk about. What you just brought up is something that we do need to add to the plan.
Yeah.
Our point was, let's get
And it
this
was in
plan out.
stuff last year. to your
Yeah.
point. It was in the stuff we sent to you last year and presented last year as well.
What was in this,
Yeah.
on board pack for tonight too?
Yeah. But I mean, it's not in this set of slides.
Gotcha. So everyone's comfortable with 28?
Well, they're going good, you think 25.
That's right. That's why, but you don't want to go over 30 or you get yourself in trouble. That's why,
30, but it's,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
it's flexible. You can target 28, but if things, you have a hell of a year, you go to 25.
Or if you have a bad, you can push it back to 30. That's what
Yeah, you
I
push it
think
back.
you have to mitigate. And the idea is 25 and 30 at the guardrails, right? We feel like we need to go over top the guardrails, we're gonna come back to the board and have that discussion.
yeah, if we have to go over 30, the board we have to have a reason why. I mean, we got to have a reason why we need the money.
But to me, it's more of the board needs to debate and
Yeah,
discuss.
well, yeah, that, you guys have to make that choice.
I feel like how we called this with poles and wire. We'll make it simple.
So I mean, this current year, we're at roughly $4 million is what we think we're gonna come in at. That's ballpark. I mean, that's rounded. I mean, that's not but in general, from the KRTAs is where we pulled this from, as well as in general, what it cost. It's kind of, I sat on a back of napkin, you figure out about how much it costs per mile of line and how many miles of line we have. And I come up with a number that we need to spend between $2.5 and $3 million every single year to replace our plant over the lifetime. The average life is 45 years. If you spend $2.5 to $3 million every year on your plant in today's money, you will be fine. Now, we are behind in this. This is one where our KRTAs and our stuff says we're not in a great place there. I mean, that's where I showed you guys last year that we have underinvested in our plant up until last year about $10 million. Now, last year we caught back a bunch of it. And this year we're going to catch back some too, but we were behind pretty good here and we've made up some serious ground the last couple of years, which is why we've borrowed money and we have done all the projects we have. I mean, we're trying to get back to where we need to be.
Yeah, we essentially didn't do any projects or pole replacements for
Right, for
2
quite a
years, 3 years.
I look at this like when you were talking earlier about the rates. To me, slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah.
You need to, volatility is not good. I mean, you can argue volatility and you could argue based on having a good year, well, we're going to make up for lost time. In raw numbers, maybe you're going to make up for lost time, but you're not going to make up for the impact of not having done it the year before.
Correct.
You can't quantify that. That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, and the challenge sometimes, and the challenge with this is really going to be the way that, I'm just going to use the word government, has you do your work plans, right? So you do a work plan. You have to do it a certain way. You have to have an engineering sign off of it. It has to all be data driven. The government says, yes, we believe these are projects you need to go do them, right? You apply for whatever type of loans you want, and you're going to see here in a minute, 50-50 is kind of what we think is the ideal range. They grant that to you and say, go do it. Then you start putting wood in the ground and wires in the air. Then you have them come out and they sign it and say, yes, you did it to spec and you did what you said you were going to do. At that point is when you can actually draw from those loan funds. The reason I bring this up is the timeline to do all that sometimes doesn't align with the timeline to actually get the work done and then to keep it. It's very hard. You would literally have to do a work plan, 5-year work plan, get that done over those 5 years. And then you would already have to be starting on your next 5-year work plan. And they would have to be smaller work plans over traditionally what we've done here at Decatur County, or even prior to me is you do a 5-year work plan where your CapEx goes way, way up. And then you don't do a work plan for 2, 3, 4 years. Then you do another work plan, it goes way up. And it does this cyclic thing. We're trying to smooth that, but there are some
work plan before, so that sounds like once we do one, it may be like, okay, there's a reason why they did those every so often instead of more often.
and it's expensive to do them.
Yeah,
What's your depreciation number for the year? You think
we're
we're
about $1.5 million. So
Because those years when we were underspending, I mean, we were depreciating faster than we were.
If we ever get to where our depreciation, our spend is less than our depreciation, because our depreciation is 30 years. I mean, it's not like if we're ever negative there, it's bad. We're going downhill.
We were.
17 and 18. That's the KRTA that we flash up at the very beginning that says, do not do this.
But that's part of where this gets us. If we stay in this range, we're gonna be fine.
Again, we
I
want,
don't think we want to do $6 million in plant in 1 year. It's a lot of stuff all at once. And this is more balanced and level. And I think my personal view is I think that's a much better way of doing things. That's my 2 cents worth.
as long as you control it. I mean, if you have something that comes in that's big, I mean, just like we talked about this dairy digester, it's a half mile or almost a full mile 3-phase line. I think it'll be cheap.
But that's a year where you might tick higher than that. Well, the following year, you don't do quite as much. I mean, that's. And maybe that's set on a 3-year average. That's what you're gonna be at over a 3-year average. But I don't think we want to get to a position where we're doing $1.5 million in plant and then 6 million and $1.5 million and 4.5, and if we can help it. I mean, maybe that is the way it works with the construction work plans and the way business operates from a big projects coming and big projects don't. But if we can have more things steady over time, we can do more of them in-house. And the more things we can do in-house, the cheaper it is. Does that number seem, I mean, I guess I'm confident that that's where the number needs to be, but at the same time, I guess.
It's real money.
Yeah, it's real money. That's a very good way of putting it. I mean, I think you're gonna spend that kind of money no matter what over time, but how does this board wish to spend it? I guess if you guys prefer the $6 million a year and the $1 million a year, hey, that's fine, but I guess what do you guys think?
I'd rather see it closer to 2. I mean, if you want me to be honest, and I have no data to back that up other than I don't like to see those numbers. 3%, 60 million, that's $2 million in money, right?
Yeah. And that's on the very low end.
That's my back of the 3% on 60 million, $2 million.
So would you prefer that the substation area we neglect be the New Point area?
I don't know that you're gonna have to neglect anything necessarily.
Over time, though.
Yeah, but, well, I don't know. I'm speaking out of my expertise.
Well, I'm teasing you there, but at the same time, it's gonna take a certain amount of money to do it. I mean, there's just,
But this is the
Yeah.
board decision that
yeah,
if you want it to be lower and you want us, you're setting the boundaries here.
I think a range is great. You need it. You have to have some flexibility. I
Yes.
completely support that. Just wondering if the range could be pushed
I
back.
mean,
If you want to pull that lever.
I'll be happy to show you how I calculated the number, and if you calculate,
I mean,
I'm all for that.
I don't think it's, I told you I got my number.
Would you like that upper boundary to be less than 6%, of course, that, I mean.
No, I want it to be 3% of 60 million, which is.
So this is gonna be,
Range, so.
this is gonna be wrote on the 3 to 6, not the 2. That was just kind of rough what the dollars are. Our thought was we'd write it up. The policy would be the 3 to 6% of the DUP. Because DUP is always moving, right?
Yeah, because 2 million, what we could have done 10 years ago for $2.5 million is a whole lot different than what we can do for $2.5 million today.
So it'd be like 3 to 4%. Total utility plan.
I mean, I would like it at least to be what the state national average is.
Don't disagree with that.
So three is below the national average.
And the national average would be what,
I don't know, I have that.
3.3?
3.5.
3.1.
Come on, Matt, I know.
3.1.
No, it's actually over 4, I think, it's last year.
But that's one data point too, so
Yeah,
you gotta be careful.
Yeah,
I mean, there are co-ops right now, they're redoing their entire system. You know, there's some co-ops that are spending 20-30 million dollars because they're bigger.
I just don't, the depreciation number deal where we were negative in that regard for those years, I just don't want to get back.
Well, and I think that, to me, that's why, whether it's 3%, 4%, 6% until they plant, it's important that we consistently do a minimum amount. You know, you can, maybe it should be a minimum of 3%. Doesn't have to be a range of 6%. So that we're not gonna create those voids where we didn't spend a lot in 1 year.
We just put the top end up there because I
Yeah, that's fine.
highly doubt you want us to go to $10 million.
This discussion purpose.
and I mean, I can show you how I calculate it. I mean, I have target 2.5. I had in the original one, I had low of 2 million, a high of 4 million with a target of 2.5. And in my other one, I have 2.2 million is what I figured based off 1,000 miles of line, $50,000 a mile for the last 40 years, is 2 million a year needed to replace what we got. So
Not that far away.
no, we're not.
You're busting my chops.
I'm not. But it will increase over time. As inflation goes up, that number goes higher. So, but yes, I get what you're saying there. But part of the reason I think you used 2.5 to 3 is I know we were coming into last year, we were $10 million behind over the last decade. If you averaged out I think I had that slide last summer where it showed 10 years ago where our plant was versus the state average plant. And then if you took the state average of Tubb, because I felt like the 38 state co-ops, we were probably average out there.
So
Maybe we're not, maybe we are, but I felt like we would be average to the rest of the state. And if you accumulated that across 10 years, it was about $10 million that we had done less than everybody else.
But we're one of the smart co-ops too, so.
So now it could be that we are better at what we're doing than everybody else, to the point where we didn't spend as much. So,
let's go with that.
All right,
Does 3 to 6, is that,
Jason's a 6% give you heartburn. Is that what you're?
I like Dale's deal, a minimum of 3%. And then, I mean,
but I don't know that you want to go any higher than a certain percentage either. I mean,
we're not going to approve it if you do it.
I mean, if you come in here and you want to spend 10%, we're gonna say,
fair point.
oh, you're not gonna waste your time doing that.
but do remember the whole
If you
point
give
of
us a target though, we're going to try to present to that number at our budget every year.
If having the ceiling of 6 is beneficial, and I'm the one that said a minimum of 3, but if that's beneficial and gives you a parameter you need to operate by, I don't have any heartburn with 6. I don't know if Jason does. But to me, I think slow and steady wins the race. I think it's incumbent upon us that every year we're going to spend a minimum on the CapEx program, period, every year.
So some of the reasons for this too, so let's go back because you guys are bringing up the budget and that's a fair thing. The whole idea of this plan is for us to have boundaries to set and make. We make decisions today that probably won't affect us for 10 to 20 years. The way it is, right? That's how the utilities work. I want to make sure that we're setting up strategies. I mean, we're talking about right now, pole replacements 10 years out. We're talking about what substation are we going to hit? What do we think the failure rate is going to be and the cost of that to strategize what that whole program looks like. That if we don't know these types of things, right? I don't know what number to put in there That's why you base it on TUP. I don't know I don't know what to put in there for 8 years from now. So if we come into a budget cycle and you guys come in and say, oh, we're only gonna do 1%, all of our plans are based on 10 years out. You just essentially screwed up that plan 10 years out. Does that make sense? In other words, we're making decisions and strategies on things that affect all 10 years. So if you come in 1 year and say, you only get 1% here, I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying
The goal.
effectively you've screwed up the whole plan.
That's why I said a minimum of 3%. Yeah.
And the goal is to try to align things to be as efficient as possible.
Correct.
I mean, if you do step A, then step B, then step C, that's the efficient way. And we're trying to get as many things as we can. Like we're talking about our pole testing to get to where we test, we mow the right of way, we design, and then we build. All in an order, and what the best order for that is in order to maximize the dollars that we spend and get we don't want to mow a right of way if we're going to move the line. We don't want to replace a bunch of red tag poles if the line's going to get moved.
They all go hand in hand.
You want to make sure you don't
Coordinate it.
Yeah.
Why don't you make that 5%? 5 times 60 is 3.
That's where you're at.
Okay, you got 3 million on your max anyway.
And then we'll target the middle of that every year. I mean, that's, you know, I mean, that's, we're going to always try to shoot for the middle of that.
What's the middle, Matt?
4%. Okay.
Like better? Good. All right, last one.
So as of now, we're at about 61% equity as percent of assets. We don't have a formal policy of where we want our equity to be. Indiana and the US, you can see there, 45%, 54%. So we're in a better equity position than most everybody.
Is that good?
It's a number. I mean, it depends on your opinion. I mean,
You're keeping more of the members' money.
That's right. That's.
and this comes back to the issue of capital credits and the fairness to the older members and the fairness to the current members, the fairness to the future members. And this is a board decision as to how you balance that, because it is a balancing act. There is no right answer. There is no wrong answer. There's just an answer. But whatever the answer is, it's your answer. So, I mean, in general, I have talked to several other people that do my position across the state, and the comment that was made to me is you fund your plant. So 50% of your plant, you fund out of current members' pay for. And 50% of it you borrow as debt because that plant's going to be there for 45 years. That way the future members pay for that portion of it. So the current members don't get stuck with 100% of the cost. So say we got $50 million in plant, 4%. We're going to come in each year and do $2 million worth of work. We're going to borrow $1 million every single year to pay for that plant so that the future members pay their share of that plant. That way there's not any, it's a decision from a fairness standpoint that all of us at this table today, we don't pay 100% of it. If all our children move away and don't live in Decatur County anymore, is it fair for our families to pay for all that today? I mean, it's a fairness issue of who pays the bill. Is it the people who are using it or the people? And I guess, I don't know if I'm saying that exactly right, but it's not the same as it's not the same as buying a house or buying a farm. It's different. The RMC is going to be here in 100 years, and the owners are still going to be the people of this community. Well, yeah, that was the other thing I told Brett today. I said, nobody buys a house every year and puts down nothing. I mean, if you put down 50%, you've made a pretty good down payment. I mean, you did right by the people in your future if you pay half of it up front.
does that bring your equity, doing that scenario you're from, up?
It should keep us, I think, roughly similar. I mean, it probably will go up some as Hoosiers equity goes up, but it doesn't allow it to get so far out of whack, but it doesn't, I mean, I feel like I'm fairly conservative. I mean, I don't stick my neck out super far, and I feel like in general, nobody's gonna say the REMC is borrowed to the hilt if we're paying for half the stuff up front in cash. I mean,
We do feel like 50-50 will keep it fairly same. It's going to inch up a little.
I mean, if Hoosiers makes more margin over time, it will get higher. I mean, but
Here's the problem. So it's the PR piece. It's what gets on Facebook and what gets everywhere else. Oh my gosh, you guys have $17 million of debt. How are we? Oh, terrible. Against the $61 million plan.
yeah,
You know, there's always an
you
asterisk.
buy a house and you put 50% down, did you do right or did you do wrong by people?
But I mean, you can't walk out of here or, it can't be the perception of, oh, they just keep borrowing and borrowing, borrowing for nothing.
But we're making a decision that if you're an 80-year-old member, why should you have to pay for 100% of something that you ain't never gonna benefit from? It's not fair. If you're at retirement age, you shouldn't have to pay higher electric bills so that the people in the future can pay either the same or a little less. I mean, it should be.
But that's the part in the story that nobody gets.
It's because it's different than any other.
Know that. But that's how we always get ourselves in the.
A farm is not nearly as capital intensive as if you Google high capital businesses, electric utility is number one.
But that's not even the point. It's the ownership and the
Yes.
thought of existing in perpetuity.
Yes, the co-op is always 20 years old. It's never retiring. It's always 20. There's never a goal to get out of debt. If you're 20 years old, you're gun ho, let's go all the time, but let's not be stupid about it. I mean, I feel like I don't know if that's the best analogy, but it's the co-op is never going to retire. The co-op is never gonna die, hopefully. I mean, unless we do something really, really dumb, but in general, it should still be here for, I mean, our kids' and our great grandchildren.
I don't have the metric on this and I can't remember exactly what it is, so I'm not going to state it, but I think a lot of people would be alarmed, and maybe this is an educational piece on how often our members turn over. Because a lot of people think of, well, I don't want my kids. And there are people like Matt that his kids are going to live in his house and they're going to be the ones that take over. But in general, that's not the case. If you look at our entire membership as a whole, it turns over like, I don't even remember what the number is. It's almost
12 or 13 years.
It's a little less than that, but yeah, it's right around that. So it isn't like.
In general, everybody in this room is not a normal member.
Correct. It's true.
I mean, you don't get elected to the board if you've only lived in Decatur County for 4 years. Let's be honest.
But the average member, it was something like 12 years. I don't know what it is now or.
I want to say it was like 12 and a half years, honestly.
Yeah.
When we talked about the last time.
But that's where when folks look at you as a board member and they say, I don't want my kids to have to pay for this. Well, in general, that's not how our membership is set up.
That's how co-op works though.
Yeah.
Carl shouldn't have to pay the power bill for his grandkids. I mean, that's
what people would say.
Yeah.
That's not in general how it's set up.
See, 61% up to 65.
and that's why we had the range of 40 to 70. If you get over 70, you start to run the legal risk again. It's like the 30-year. There's certain numbers once you cross the shark circle. The last thing I really want to do is give our members' money to a lawyer.
I agree with Carl. I don't know that I necessarily want it to go below 50. I feel like 40 is kind of.
And that was just a range. I mean,
Yeah.
if something, so if which we'll discuss later, if fiber were to happen, it probably would be hard to maintain it.
If that happens,
above
we're gonna have to
that.
look at this whole policy.
Yes.
Pat, on your top recommendation point there, though, just so I'm understanding that clearly, you're suggesting that every year
Yeah, just put it on autopilot. That way it's not an argument every year.
But in a year where we're sitting here late in the year and we've had exceedingly good margins, you're suggesting that we would still borrow money.
Yeah, we give it back as capital credits then.
And I'm not just,
Yeah.
because to me, there's some fundamental counterintuitive thing that says, I got all this money, why do I want to go borrow money? And that's where
Well,
the anomaly of the,
if we have super margins, people who are members today paid those margins. They should get that money back the following year to capital credit. If we have a year where something happens, say we have $5 million margin, we don't need that. We say we have an extra $2 million to hand back. Well, the board in January after year end decides, well, hey, we're going to hand that back to last year's members.
I'm glad this is taped because the accountant will never say that. Did you hear that? 5 minutes. Don't need that.
If we start running $5 million.
Can you say that again?
That's, but in general, that's the people who, the idea is to try to be fair. And fair is always subjective and fair is not always equal and fair is, I mean, and that's where the board's opinion comes in. I mean, if the board feels that, and I mean, in general, fairness is the people who use it pay for it in a cooperative model. I mean, that's our cost-based account, or cost-based rates. I mean, if you cause the cost, you pay the bill. I mean, that's the whole principle of the big giant 180-page manual or whatever it tells us how to do our rates. It's the idea that the people who cause the cost pay the expense.
Cost causation.
And in general, that is the rule. I mean, it's a different model than, hey, I'm going to go out and farm and I'm going to make as much money as I can and I'm going to leave it to my kids. It's different. It's different. It is a whole different mentality.
yeah, but see, that's what I see as the fundamental difference between a co-op. In a private setting, you're accumulating wealth, you're accumulating assets because you have the luxury of passing it on to whom you want. In our setting, it's not an asset we get to pass on. It's a liability back to our members. And on our balance sheet, we don't own anything. We either owe the bank or we owe the members.
Correct.
And we have no assets.
Good way of looking at it, yeah.
Our equity is our members' money.
And therefore, in my mind, it's a liability.
But the theory of borrowing every time you do a project is it smooths out. So when interest rates were very cheap, we'd have borrowed more money. Now I will say that maybe if interest is 15%, I might argue that 50-50 is not the right bet. But if interest is 1%, I mean, it may be that, hey, you want to borrow dollar for dollar. I mean, that is I don't know, that's the next step in that though. But in general, the first step is there an agreement that you borrow money to put some of the cost to the future members? Because if that's not the consensus of the board, then the next step doesn't matter. So I guess that's where, because I mean, I guess my view is if the interest is 5% below, well, you probably want to borrow more. If interest between 5 and 10%, you want to borrow maybe half. If it's over 10, I don't want to borrow much at all. I mean,
And I think
those are numbers up for debate too.
Well, and you're kind of going, it's a little against what we talked about before, is slow and steady and stable, right?
Yes.
If you know that you're going to borrow $1.5 million a year, every single year over time,
Yes.
that blended interest rate is going to be reasonable.
Yes.
So you start.
Yes, I know when you try to monkey with that, you're
Because if
playing with fire. I get it.
we should have already done that.
Yes.
We're too late for that party.
But that's the past and
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know that I really want to get back in that.
that's fair too. And that's why I put that out there.
Now, of course, there's an asterisk to all of this, right? If it did go to 15%, then we probably wouldn't,
I
obviously.
We'd have to look at
it probably ratchet down our
probably to the minimum plant spend too. I mean, there's all kinds.
Pay back capital credits,
Yeah.
right? Use that
Yeah.
cushion or your
Yes.
cushion, I mean.
That's why if you set your things up to have multiple levers, you have a lot of things you can pull.
Steve and I were talking, and I think the policy prior to getting rid of it in there, I think it was 45 to 55%, if I remember. On
Plus or
the,
minus 10% or something, wasn't it? So there was.
I don't remember that aspect of
Say
it.
that again. What was 45?
45 to
This
55%.
equity range.
Oh.
Trying to stay with.
Equity range.
That, so we, we've crept up. Do you have a concern going over 65? Did you?
If you get, one thing, if you get over 70, you become,
Okay, so
there's a lot of, one, you run the risk of being sued because you're not managing the co-op properly according to industry standards. And two, you become takeover risk, and that somebody comes along and offers the members $100. Well, yeah, I'll get free power for a year. I mean, that's like, I told Brett, I said, well, that's like selling your farm today for $1,000 an acre and you get a life estate and you just threw it all away. I mean, you get something, the members take the short, quick money and run, and that's bad for everybody in the long run. Because there are people out there who will take the short-term money and not see the big picture.
Everybody's good with this range?
We're not asking for approval.
Right, but
But if you'd like to give it, I'll take it.
So does interest rates need to be mentioned in that?
Well, and the way Jason said, no,
Range,
that's,
you know, we say today if it's 10%, we're gonna cut way back, but on,
well, that's the thing.
you know what I mean? And it's, do we leave that window open or do you?
Let's go look and see if there are any. I bet you across the United States, there's a co-op that has a financial management plan that has something to do with that. Maybe look at some examples and we can bring them to you and see.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know how they would have it worded or what constraints they would place on it.
I don't even know if that.
Might be worth looking at.
Here,
I guess the biggest thing is there a consensus with the idea if we do, so we do $1.5 million in plant the first half of the year to just go ahead and borrow $750,000 because that's what this plan, we're going to borrow the money. Because to a certain extent, if we put that in motion and we're going to do that, I mean, I don't want to, I guess I'd like to have something more concrete that I know, hey, this is gonna work, if that makes sense.
With the board?
Yeah. I mean, in general, I don't know, is that something, is that a bridge too far to cross that, hey, we've done $500,000 worth of stuff, we're gonna borrow X dollars because that was in our budget? And just go ahead and try to find it at the cheapest, because I mean, interest since I came here 2 months ago and asked has gone up 0.5%. I mean, if possible, I'd pull the money right then and there. I mean, is that part of this or is that separate? I mean, I guess that's what what is the board's appetite there? Because I mean, if this is truly, we're going to pay it, the future members are going to pay for this and it's going to be automated. I mean, I watch the interest every day. I mean, I feel like if I have will I get it right every time? No, but will I watch it close enough that there'll be times where we do okay with it? Yeah. I mean, we'd probably pull smaller hunks more often to try to balance that out versus.
So you get that blended rate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to borrow, if we're gonna say borrow $2 million a year, I don't want to borrow it all at once. I want to borrow it like say 12 times a year. So that way we spread it out and truly get that spread out number. The blended.
asking to execute the draws without
Yes.
our.
Through this plan.
Through this plan. It dictates this plan and we follow that plan and we borrow the money on when more frequently in smaller chunks in order to blend the interest rate down. And I mean, because if you borrow $250,000 in January and you borrow $250,000 in July, you're going to get a different number than if you borrow
500,000.
Yes.
And
Some you're
not,
gonna win, some you're gonna lose. I mean,
and not right now that we would do variable, but this also allows, if that makes sense in that
well,
environment.
and that's the next step with this too, is what is the board's appetite for fixed and variable? I mean, that, I guess the biggest question first off, is there agreement with the idea that future members pay for this through debt? I mean, if that's a yes or a no, I guess that's really the first major question, because that
drives everything.
that drives it all.
You have to have an answer right now.
I don't have to have an answer right now, no.
Table it. Talk about it here sometime.
I do agree with you. Well, I would like to know where the 50/50 came from. Was that just like, that's a starting place, or? Because if you're talking about assets that are gonna last 45 years and the average member is on our system for 12,
We depreciate,
we're like 40, 60. Are we splitting hairs? But that would increase, or should it be 60? I don't know.
We could do that. This is probably industry standard,
well, some.
as standard as it can be. It could be, we can do whatever we want.
It was from a simplicity standpoint, as much as anything, half and half. You pay for half of it now, you pay for half of it later. It was
Easier to explain.
It was easy to explain. It kept us pretty close to where we are. It was we're at 61% equity. Borrowing 50/50 ain't gonna rock that boat too much. I mean, it's, in my head, it's fair. I mean, you pay half now, you pay half later. I mean, that's.
Is there any science to it? No.
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
No, it's not like some of the other things where we've sat down and it was a starting point. I mean, if the board's consensus is 70/30, 60/40, 25/75, I mean, I don't care what that break is.
Just want the parameters. But it's definitely easier. I think that's one reason me and Matt really like this method. Number one, I do believe this is how a lot of folks operate, but it is easier when you're talking to a member to explain the whole 50/50, right? Like 50% of it, members today are going to pay on their bill. And then 50% of it, rest. We could get this very complicated too, right? I mean, you could look at time.
But it's just
money and.
But at the end of the day, the member's just gonna know the percentage.
Yes.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's not like the expense regression back to the mean and.
And then I guess the other question is what we could drive. I mean, if you don't think 61% increasing a little bit over time is where we need to be, well, then we probably do need to do something with 50/50 to start changing that direction, right? I mean, I guess the question is do we?
I mean, is there an equity target everybody wants? I mean, that's part of it too. I mean.
And I know there's way more involved in what I just said as far as is that 61% be when it comes to the 50/50. But it impacts it, right?
Yeah. I mean, that'll be the number one. I mean, the number one driver of our equity is going to be how much money we borrow and how much we pay back in capital credits. I mean, that's what's going to drive.
The story is, though, it has not been managed. It's just kind of fallen wherever it's fallen, and it just has continued to go up and up.
Because there's no plan.
But there's not a policy there that
Right.
says it's going to be X. I mean, I guess that's why I say you give us the guardrails and we'll stay between. I mean, if the board says that we're going to have 70 to 90% equity, by God, that's where we'll be. I mean, I don't care what the parameters are. I just want parameters.
See, I personally want a lower equity rate. 'Cause like I said, I look at that that we owe somebody. We owe somebody that money. And I'd rather have a lower equity rate and low it and lending institution than to owe our members.
How often does that 61% fluctuates?
Since I've been here, it's been up to 66 at one point and down as low, I believe, as 60. So it's not, it varies maybe 0.5% each month. If we borrow money, it'll drop a little bit, but it won't be, it's not, I mean, it doesn't move very fast.
Just as a point to that, in the financial update, it's on the financial report summary. I look every month, it's 61.26%. It's one of the things I look at and say, just from a barometer standpoint, what are we doing? And we've kind of been picking up, this is actually lower than it's been for quite some time.
We are above the state average as well, right? And for that matter, the US average.
Indiana's a high equity state.
Depending on what your theory is, that could be good, that could be bad.
Yeah. It's just a number. It doesn't tell you whether it's good or bad. Yeah.
Not to belabor the point, but let me ask you a question regarding the 50-50. Is it impractical to have a range that says neither one of those percentages are they're going to be a minimum of, and they're not going to exceed? And then allow
We're gonna be, this gives us sort of the autopilot, right? So,
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do that, but we're still
Well,
gonna,
I guess I'm just thinking about like sensitivity to interest rates and things like that.
Yeah.
Gives you a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah. I mean, you could set whatever you set the policy as, we'll do.
So if it's the third Tuesday and it's cloudy and it's.
If you want us to only put in our stuff on days that it rains, we can make sure that happens. Granted, it'd have to rain before 4 o'clock, but 5, or the federal government wouldn't get it. No, I mean, you could set the policy that if interest is below 5%, it's gonna be.
You're looking for structure.
It's gonna be 5 to 10. I mean, you can be as detailed as you want or as.
now I'm starting to think of the reasons that the interest rate would cause this problem. So one of the big points of this is so that we can plan long-term. In a 10-year financial forecast, you're not gonna be able to say, you know what I'm saying? You're not gonna be able to put that as a variable in there. Hey, if it's interest, no one knows what the interest rate is gonna be in 10 years.
Well, and the reason back to the sensitivity of the interest rate, and it's a point Jason made early on. You know, there's a public perception, if the interest rate's high, we got a 50% in place, and we're gonna go out and borrow money. When the interest rate is high, there's gonna be, what the hell are you people doing?
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Well, let's look and see if there are some.
Yeah, we can ask that question to the other co-ops, what they.
I haven't ever seen it, but we would just have to understand that our plans, our current plans are gonna be built on that variable not existing. Because you have to, I can't predict what the interest rate's gonna be.
Pushback. Sense.
We could say for planning purposes, we're gonna use this, and in reality, here's some, let us look at it. That's an interesting, I don't.
I mean, if interest is 20%, I won't ever advocate.
But
I just won't.
But if this is in place, how do you get around it?
Well, I come in here and say, I don't think that's.
That's what I'm saying. But that then doesn't give
Yes,
you
it
guidelines.
this, but I mean, I would argue that this is in general. How many times has that happened though? I mean, in general, our opportunity to borrow at 1% is probably a once in a lifetime event and gone. And our opportunity to borrow at 20% hasn't happened in my lifetime, or at least not in my adult lifetime. It might have been when I was 1 or 2 years, it might have been that bad, but I don't think so.
I agree. I think that if the interest rates get to a point where this board or whatever board is uncomfortable with doing this,
But that.
then change it. But if we get this in place, this is something that I think needs to be reviewed periodically. Like maybe it's a precursor to our budget. Like we sit down and say, hey,
Yes, I agree exactly. Yeah.
here's where our plan's at. Because again, you're good. This will be useless though, if you guys set this plan and we get into budgeting cycle and we don't follow it.
Yes.
Because it does us no good. If we're gonna do that, then.
That's, yes. If we decide we're gonna borrow half the money, there needs to be extenuating circumstances why we deviate. I mean, otherwise it makes budgeting and everything else.
You gotta do anything for us. The whole purpose of this is long-term planning
Yes.
and boundaries and all that good stuff.
It's to make sure that we hit the guardrail, not the ditch.
Sure.
I mean, that's the.
But I mean, if we get to budgeting cycle and we have this in our plan, and it's like, no, we're not gonna borrow anything in our budget. this doesn't do us any good. And I think that's why it needs to be policy. At some point.
Anything else on this?
You're up again.
All right, well, you got mine.
I wasn't gonna put it up unless you want me to.
And I can,
I'll have to tee up.
it's fine, I can look at it. Okay, so along the lines of what we, just talked about. We currently have $750,000 outstanding on our line of credit at CFC. We're paying 7% interest. Next week, that's gonna go to 7.25%. We're gonna need to borrow another $300,000 this week in order to pay everything. We can borrow 30-year fixed money at 3.99. As of that day, it's like 4.03, I think that's today. We still have $2.5 million yet on our work plan that we have completed the project. So we have actually put the poles and wires up, but we paid cash for it. So we can borrow against that $2.5 million yet that we have there. In a real positive note, we have received the remainder of our large transformers and we're good. I mean, unless we have some catastrophe, nobody on the board is going to get a call from any of our big industrials saying, where the hell's the transformer at? Because we're good. And those are going to get paid in August. The Westport and the Halserbach stuff, that's listed in here. So I am asking to borrow $1.5 million of long-term debt now in order to, one, pay off this line of credit, pay for the transfer. Now, to give you an idea, I did look up today our transformers and meters that we have bought in 2017, 18, and 19 is between 250,000 and 300,000. In 20 and 21, it was around 450,000 average. In 22, we spent $1 million on transformers, and this year we're going to spend probably close to 900,000. So in the last 2 years, we have replenished our stock to where if a transformer goes out, we buy it. We're not sitting at the bare minimum where a year and a half ago, if something had gone wrong, we'd all be in a world of hurt. But now we have the stuff on site that we're not going to tell anybody, no, you can't build your subdivision. If lightning strikes a 2,500 kVA transformer, we're not going to say, yeah, your factory's shut down for 6 months till we can find one. It's here. So we have the things we have to have. Our inventory is where it needs to be. So the giant cash outlay of the last 2 years for transformers is done. It should go back to, it's not going to go back to 250 because the price of everything has jumped so much, but I think it'll be closer to that 400 to 500 range on an average basis. So we will not have that major cost like we have the last 2 years. So there won't be, so that's where a lot of our plant money has gone. I mean, there's 2 million there that went versus it's about $1.2 million more than what had been spent the last several years to get our inventory back to a safe range with all the delays now and supply chain issues and everything being, you just can't get it. I mean, was it Eric told me the other day, the IEC guy walking out back said, I guess I know where to go if I need something now and somebody else explains. So we are in good shape there. So there's something to be said for having the things you need when you need them. So in general, I guess I'm asking for the ability to borrow $1.5 million on long-term money at 4% versus paying it on line of credit at 7.25%.
So you get this 1.5 at 4, does it take care of that 700?
Yes, we'll pay that down immediately. Yes.
Good question.
Will it cover your 700 plus the 300 you're anticipated borrowing plus your
422 in August, right?
Gonna take all.
And it's going to take the vast majority.
Yeah, that's where it's all going. I mean, that's effectively, I'm saying that's where it's going.
The idea is not to end up with any short term, right?
They're gonna get you through the end of the year. Is that gonna get you through the end of the year?
Because what was your question, Jason?
Is that gonna get you through the end of the year?
Thank you, because that's the next question.
Depends.
Sir, not to be so specific.
I would say it will get us
what?
weather. Some of it'll be timing from it'll get us till we pay capital credits. I can tell you that. I mean, that is the one big expense we have coming yet that can hit us. I mean, it'll get us up to that point. Are we gonna get enough to pay that $1.2 million at the end of the year? I can't tell you that for sure yet. Well, that's what we approved is,
0.2 million in capital credit retirement.
yes,
What do you mean getting enough money?
we'll have the cash to send that out the door. I mean, we have to have,
We know where a good chunk of it's coming from.
yes. But, I mean, like Brett said, the weather or something else, I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and swear to you that we won't need any more because first thing I do that, we will. And I'm not gonna say that there's zero chance that we won't. I mean,
And the rate on that money continues to go up as well, correct? On the long term, you said it's
it has bounced from 4.25 to 3.5, and now it's
4.
back a little above 4, yeah.
Volatility of that is much more.
Actually, it's more volatile than the short-term money because short-term money just keeps going up. It's not really volatile. It's high.
Yeah, volatility.
This goes down, up and down. That just is up.
That's the trajectory.
And your current blended rate is,
It's a 4.5, so this would be lower than what we're currently borrowing money at historically. It's a better deal than the other money we have borrowed.
What's the downside for borrowing at all?
2.5. I don't think there's any other than, I mean, I didn't feel like the appetite would be there to borrow all of it.
Out there to see what,
To be honest, I wasn't gonna ask for something I didn't think I could get.
That's the question I wrote. Only $1.5 million?
I don't know when we can borrow the rest.
We can borrow all of it.
that.
I've
No,
got
no, I
everything
mean,
lined up. We can have that money in 2 weeks. We can have.
But when is that money no longer accessible to speculation?
Oh, that's into several years. I mean,
so you could get it if some,
I've got it set up. We can borrow all of it, right?
but I
We
mean,
get 2 weeks.
3 months from now, something unforeseen happens.
Yes, we can get the other. I have sent in all the paperwork to borrow all of it.
But your interest rate might not be as attractive either.
Well, it might be more. You never know. I mean, if the economy turns and we go into a massive recession, it might be 3.5. That's part of the reason too, of not asking for all of it at once, is to spread that out because, I mean, my crystal ball, if I knew interest was gonna be 3.5 or 4.5, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be on a beach somewhere with more money I knew what to do with.
Writing postcards to all of us.
That's right. If I was that good, I wouldn't be sitting here.
What's plan B?
It's just gonna take this $1.5 million. So
Matt, what's plan B?
What do you mean? It'll be on the line of credit. Borrowed at 7.25 until,
Because you've got
How long?
4 million on that,
uh,
because you've got up to 4
we can
million.
borrow up to 4 million. I mean, we're not gonna not pay our bills.
Right.
That's not a,
Sure.
I won't.
Well, I don't think anybody would add that.
No, I mean, if we don't borrow this, we'll keep borrowing on the line of credit until we start to claw our way back as the remainder of the year goes. I mean, we knew the first half of this year, we were gonna have really, it wasn't gonna be as pretty as second half.
Technically in the second half.
We're presenting through June.
Yeah, the financial.
I mean, we've done We did the pole replacements in-house that we're not budgeted for, but we still paid for. I mean, we have done lots of CapEx projects. We're ahead currently on the right of way. So I mean, we're making good progress on things. Like I said, the financials are probably going to look as bad as they're going to look all year. That's what I'm hoping. Till next month.
You're asking for it now.
It's going to start to turn. I know it is. I mean, unless the weather stays cold. I mean, if we have a really cool and mild August, hey, again, if I can predict that,
You'd be a weatherman.
you might not predict that. I'd be way better than a weatherman. I mean, the money is going towards things that are long-term. I mean, it's gone into transformers and poles and it's long-term projects. It comes back to that general idea of the stuff we buy today, should the members of the day pay for it or the members of tomorrow? And it's paying for things that we're buying today, but it's also the loan money is for things that we bought in the last 3 years. I mean, it's every paper I turned in on to borrow against is from a prior year. I mean, there's nothing in there for stuff that's been done in 23.
We finance the stuff out of our general fund, essentially.
Out of what, Brett?
Margins, came out of margins.
Sure.
We've paid for all this stuff in cash. Because it's RUS money and RUS don't give you your money back unless you've already spent it. So.
If my math is correct, 750 at 7%, we're paying about $4,300 a month in interest. $1.5 million at 4%, we'd be paying about $5,000 in interest. So you're paying $600 or $700 more per interest per month, but you have access to more than twice as much cash.
I mean, it's a large discrepancy in interest rates, yeah. I mean,
It's huge.
I mean, if you did want to borrow the full 2.5 million, we'd take what's left over and prepay Hoosier and
What do we earn on that?
6.3. I mean, we'd arbitrage the rest of it. I mean, we pay for it and lend it to them at 6.5 or 6.25. And now it'll be 6.5 after the interest rate peak or spikes. It'll be 6.5 probably. They keep some of the savings over the line of credit that they have and pass it on and they. But I felt like I asked for what I needed. I didn't ask for
What you want?
nice. Yes, that's exactly right. I mean, I asked for all of it a couple of years ago.
He said, back the truck up.
Does any other director have any appetite for the full 2.5?
So if you do the full 2.5 and you prepay Hoosier, would it be the million that you would prepay?
Yeah, we prepay Hoosier with every extra dollar we have. I mean, the moment we can send them money, we send them money.
But out of this, would it
Yeah,
be that additional
It'd be
million?
roughly $1 million. Yeah, we'd send them faster.
So that we would earn
Probably 3 weeks of the year or month. I mean, 3 weeks a month, you'd get that because it's not going to be every single day that you'd get the prepayment. I mean, it's not going to be, there's a little bit of a lag between their bill and when you pay it. So there's a couple days there.
It's not straight math with 30 days.
Yeah, it's not going to be full 30 days. I don't want you to think that it's
it's not a true 6.
It's not true.
Right.
Yes, but it's going to be
That neighborhood.
pretty close. It's not 31 days and 31 days. No, it's
75%, be 4.5.
or 75%.
3 out of 4 weeks.
I'll let you know, sir.
Back of the napkin.
3.5.
And you can put whatever, I mean, Jenny's really good about making sure that whatever dollars we have, looking
Yeah.
ahead, knowing what's coming up and whatever dollars we have ahead, she prepays.
I mean, if there's money there, we send it. I mean, that's,
Maybe crazy enough.
That's
So
a
just
pretty-
borrowing, but just borrowing the 1.5, we're going to put you in a better situation to prepay Hoosier with our regular revenue flow.
well, I mean, in general, it'll pay off our line of credit. I mean, but yeah, I mean, anything extra, we're gonna pay faster. I mean,
I'm not going to argue the 1.5, but I don't know if prepaying Hoosier is a good reason to look at putting a long-term debt on our balance sheets or not. Just personal point.
yeah, that's,
I said Jason would fund the difference.
Oh, okay, yeah. Are you making the motion?
I said, I'm not arguing 1.5, but I'm going to argue borrowing long-term for prepay,
The one.
borrow additional to prepay, just to prepay Hoosier.
All right, so there.
As far as the prepaid, how long a stretch are we talking that if earn?
as long as interest is where it's at, we should probably offer that, I would. I mean, they always offered something.
Yeah, they've never not offered it since here, but it fluctuates with.
If I get her point to borrow long-term money just to prepay for today, does it pencil out long-term? Understand my question there?
I do.
I
In
understand.
fact, if I knew that answer, I would.
Personal.
If you're only getting 3 weeks of the month, it's probably pretty close to a wash.
I'd say so, yes. That's why I'm asking for $1.5 million.
I think if you don't believe interest rates,
If
We're
you don't
gonna
think
go
long-term
up.
money's gonna go up,
it's probably,
then borrow the 1.5. If you think long-term is gonna get much higher, then borrow it all. I mean, that's why the other year when I said let's borrow every dollar, because I felt
They're almost-
confident things are gonna go higher.
Maybe.
But I don't have the same level of confidence I did as they did.
that's why we're glad it's
Year
your
and a half
call. Glad I'm not you. I mean, it really is. You're either probably gonna be make a little bit or a wash, or you're betting on interest rates. being
Right,
higher.
yeah.
It's really weird.
A year and a half ago, I was willing to make that bet. I don't know how comfortable I am making it right now.
Should we borrow the 1.5, the additional million then is available to us for line items?
It's
Yeah, the
not-
other million's sitting there, yeah.
I mean, if we potentially need it, lock in an interest rate on that.
Yeah, I mean, if come December and we need to pay capital
Yeah.
credits, that's good money to pay like returns.
You know how long I was gonna be able to lock it down?
No, it won't lock in for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. So
So,
it's dependent upon 2 weeks from today.
so when I send the paperwork in, it takes a
Gotcha. I know you said
certain
the 2
amount of
weeks.
time before they will send us, they lock it in the day they send the money. So you send them the paperwork, they process the paperwork, then they send you the money. Day you get the money is the day you get the rate.
You had pretty good luck on that last
I
time.
did have a lot of good luck last time.
They made a bunch of phone calls.
Called opportunistic, man. So
Make a win when you get one.
But good luck. I mean, I'm gonna say it wasn't a win, I'll just tell you.
I don't think I got that. I've learned to listen. Straight down and look at the notes. Yeah. Let's go ahead. Nope.
Makes you think of a new guy.
These are sensitive.
Exactly.
Nice.
inflation goes up to 10%, it's gonna be all the money back.
Good decision that would have been made. I'll ask the question, is there anyone that doesn't think we should borrow the 1.5 based on what Matt has?
Is that, I mean, it's discussion. I don't know where we are.
Yeah, I think we're ready for,
Further discussion.
make a motion to borrow the 1.5. 1.5. Okay, we have a motion to borrow the 1.5.
I'll second that.
And we have a second. I will ask if there's any further discussion at this point. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion passes unanimously.
Do that financial management plan. We won't have to do this anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
Be automatic.
we can do that. We can do that. All right. Good discussion. I think we're to
But the
the
argument is
policy bylaw reviews here.
future.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go over this really quick and I don't provide feedback. You can today, or if you can email me too, that'd be fine. We got a long discussion at the end of this, trying to fly through this. This was a project that came out of our project list this year. It was really us trying to create a reward and recognition program around safety. We feel like our safety program is kind of stalled out. We really wanted to create programs where if people take the initiative to go above and beyond safety and do some things differently, that we're going to actually pay them. Now, two things. One, this is already in the budget. It roughly, if it gets taken advantage of, it's about $1,600 a year. We've already got money in the safety budget. So it's not a budget ask. This isn't a policy. So I don't really need approval. What I need is just any input you guys might have on this. And like I said, if you want to email me, that's fine. Essentially, there's 2 or 3 different programs in here. We're going to be kicking off and I'll let you know when those meetings are, but we're going to do 2 meetings a year where it's going to be a safety meeting. We're going to acknowledge safety. We're going to either have a speaker, we're going to do a video, or we're going to have a discussion. We'll have breakfast and then we'll do these award things. Anyways, if you want to let me know, please read through this. If you have any questions, let me know. Other than that, I just want you to be aware of it. It's got to have to go through your union. So this isn't something I can just implement. I can't give a benefit without union negotiations. So one of 2 things will happen. I'll either go to the union steward and they'll say, yeah, that's not a problem, move forward. We'll take care of it when we do negotiations, or no, you're going to have to open up all negotiations. At what point we're going to say, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. And we won't be able to implement it in negotiations, which is
coming up though, isn't it?
It is.
Is it September, October?
My opinion is they're going to have no problem offering an incentive like this. So I don't know how you argue against it being in the union. So there is no questions. If you do have questions, you have feedback, feel free to email me.
So if you don't get any feedback from us, though, you're ready to send this on to whomever needs to see it. So why don't we come up with a timeline? If you don't hear from us by when? The middle of next week?
How about the end of next week?
The end of next week? Everybody got that? Do you see any modifications that you think needs to be?
You don't want to discuss this at the meeting?
No, we can.
Okay, I guess my issue would be the winter receiving 100 or 2 hours of personal time off. Like, that's not equal for everybody, the 2 hours of personal time off.
It is not. So
I don't like that. I don't think it should just be the $100.
$100.
Don't even do final.
for all of them or for just that one?
I don't know. I didn't read all of them.
They all have.
See, there's a 306 hours there.
I think it should just be.
Yeah, I don't like the
I think it should be a flat stipend rate, not hours.
Dollar amount.
Mhm.
Easier to budget.
I like that idea.
I agree with Brian on that.
That's not gonna be a problem.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
pick up those.
What we can do is we could try it like that. If we don't get any takers, then maybe 6 months to a year from now, we change it. I'm good with that.
Read just a couple of typos, 3.2.4. First come, first served basis, not BASIS.
Oh, I like bases, bad bases. I got it.
And then on appendix C, the form, describe what you, I presume that says observed, not overserved.
Overserved.
That's what, I'm guessing we're using artificial intelligence and something.
Yeah, you gotta love, spell check.
Says overserved instead of observed.
Describe what.
I've observed someone getting,
That could have been interesting if we'd have let that go.
I have observed somebody getting overserved, but I don't know if you want to know.
So I agree. We'll try it without the incentive, the hours make those small changes. And if for some reason it doesn't get participation, I would suggest that we move it to there wasn't an easy way to do, like, I was trying to get it as close as I could to like, okay, what's the average equivalency of what that dollar amount is in hours? But I didn't want to make it too complicated where it was like, well, depending on what you make, it's this, you know what I mean? So, okay, we'll try it.
We'll still give you additional feedback by the end.
Yeah.
Next week.
Yep,
If need be. All right, so the next item has to do with policy 1-8. Probably gone over that. The time we typically look at the direct compensation study. I know, I think last year, Suzanne, you had a couple of questions.
Yeah, I wanted, and I would like to, when Joe gets back, I'd like to make a motion on 2E, a director may not receive more than one stipend payment for each calendar day except as specified. I'd like to just add a general term unless director receives prior approval from the board. Because I spent 15 hours and I didn't realize, because I did not read that policy in detail, so I didn't get paid. That's the reason. And I talked about that. I would like to make a motion to add unless the director receives prior approval from the board. So if you know I'm going to be sitting in a meeting all day for 8 hours and then come to a board meeting at night, if I ask the board a month or 2 months before to recognize that, or anyone else, and that would be 2E.
Is there a way to put in there 2 separate meetings, same day? I get what you got.
Or if the director attends an educational,
Something, 2 separate meetings.
But if those 2 meetings were an hour apiece, then I don't know that they would warrant that. So I think we do need to have a threshold of some sort, whether it's hour.
He said it
Like you
has to
said, I
be
think
approval.
it has to be approved first.
right? So if I attend a women's conference, which this year I already looked, it's on a Friday, not a Thursday or a Wednesday, so I'm okay to attend.
Right.
That's not an issue.
Yes.
I don't know, and I don't know how many issues there are that are the same day. But I think if the board approves that, like you said, it's not a 1 hour event, if it's a full day event or a IEC meeting. And now that we moved it to
Are you
Wednesday,
asking to be approved in advance or after the?
advance,
Okay.
unless director receives prior approval from the board.
We can, you want to redline these for next month and then vote on it?
That's an easy
This
change.
needs to change. Okay, let's see if there's any additional changes from,
That's the only change I was gonna recommend.
I'm just gonna go with exactly what you said. I'll go back on the tape and just.
okay.
And that was what on 2E?
I will email that to you, Brett.
2E, yeah. State one more time, Suzanne, what you added.
On 2E,
Right.
just to add, a director may not receive more than one stipend payment for each calendar day, except, or I'm going to change it to unless the director receives prior approval from the board.
As far as compensation, did everybody take a look at, the IEC study? And was there any, Brett, can you pull that up on the screen by chance?
Maybe.
Oh, okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I can't. I don't like the way this is reported, and I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do about it. It's a set standard. But if you look at this, all of them, essentially, people don't have in general, what do we call it, retainer, right? They do per diems, and so the verbiage kind of puts ours in weird. I pay attention more to the right side, the total dollars compared to, and you guys read my memo. I think we're in
Yeah,
pretty good position, really.
The only other thing here that I recognize is that, 38 REMCs, I think there's only 6 that report or something.
Yep.
Less than that. And last year, I think there were 32, so I don't know if it gives us a pretty good feel and flavor, I guess, but. One thing we are kind of high on, it looks like, is the number of director participation, hours of participation a month. I don't know what the average is. But if everybody's good with what's stated in the policy 1A.
There's only 3 boards with even number of board members.
Yes, I noticed that as well.
8, 8, and 10. Everyone else has an odd number.
And those ones that are even, there's something wrote in their bylaws or somehow or another that I think it's the chairman doesn't vote or something like that.
Unless it's a tiebreak or something.
Yeah. No, not even if it's a tie.
Make a tie.
See, the way ours is we follow Robert's rules, would say is they can make a tie, which kills the motion. Some people put in their bylaws that have even numbers that the chairman can't break a tie. So therefore,
Well, there's always a tie. The chairman can't make it.
can't make a tie, sorry.
Yeah. So if you got 10 people and it's 5-4, the chairman has to vote on or abstain.
But that's against Robert's rules. So it's,
Yeah.
I think you could argue either way.
Everybody good with what we have? Yes, okay. So we'd say we reviewed it, I guess, but I might follow up with IEC and find out why not everybody reports or I think calculates and other things. Okay, so the next item is collective board division. What we've talked about. Division, you're up.
Yep. So I'm going to be really, really quick with this because I'm not asking for a whole lot tonight. I just want to.
Oh, excuse me. Let me go back. We didn't vote on.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Suzanne. Yeah, so we need to do that.
I made the motion, but nobody seconded it.
Okay, well, no, we'll get back to it.
Okay, that's fine.
So we got a motion, we got a first, we need a second.
That was the motion was the prior approval that you can get 2 stipends.
That you can get 2 stipends based upon the ask, right?
Or a stipend and a stipend and a half, or a half stipend. I mean, it would be.
The expectation, I think, in your, was 2 stipends, correct?
Because
Or is it based, so what if one is
one's a half.
4 hours and the other one's a
I
half?
would think it would be the board would have to approve it.
Okay.
Subject to the board approval.
So if it's more than 1, it has to come to board approval, regardless of whether it's 2 full.
But the ask has to be,
There has to be a prior ask.
yeah. Okay, so we have a first. I seconded it. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same. The motion passes. Okay, now, sorry, Brad. No, you're good. You're up with vision.
So I'm going to go over this pretty quickly. I'm not asking a lot tonight, just trying to start engaging, teeing this up. So as you know, most companies have a mission, vision, value, and motto. We're not going to worry too much about a motto, but we do have a mission statement. It was reviewed just prior to me being here. We do have values. We created those in an offsite where we sat here, board approved them. One thing I would ask, so this is our mission today. As you remember in our last offsite, we talked about adding the word safe in there. And there's two trains of thought on this thing. One is that safety is just like spending money, right? It's a given. We don't mention it because it's part of what we do. The other side of it is, yeah, but safety is a little bit more important than that, and it needs to be in our mission statement. You could argue the other way. I know we talked about it at the offsite, and I think everybody then was kind of in agreement that we could add it. If you guys want to add it, I'd ask you to make a motion and add it. If we don't want to, we don't have to, but I think we should. Next is like I said, we already have the values. These were approved back by the board. I don't know, it was sometime a year ago or so. So that is one action you may want to take tonight, is if you want to add that word safety. So today it says
We voted and did that.
not officially. I went back and looked because Steve and I were both talking about it too. And I went back and looked. We didn't record it if we did. I know we talked about it and I think everybody was on board with it. Steve asked me about it. I went and did some research not too long ago. I could not find a note or a board meeting minute that actually said that we changed it. I could be wrong. I could have missed it, but I did go back and look. So what I'm here to talk about tonight is vision. It's an aspirational statement that describes the company's goals for the future and impact it aims on the world. So this is sort of like, what are we doing in the future to affect the world around us, high level? So Steve and I kind of talked about, well, how are we going to go through, how are we going to make a vision statement, right? Do we just like everybody write down what they think? Well, no, there's actually a process we can follow. So I was going to go through it real quick. It's identify the stakeholders, start with a list of keywords, answer like foundational company questions, sort them by importance, write a long form, step back, evaluate, and write your final. So there is a process that we can follow. There are steps that are underneath of this. The first question I got to ask is this something that we want to do? And I'm going to skip to the next one before we answer that. The first three steps in my mind, we can do pretty simply with a survey. So I would think the stakeholders are the board, leadership team, and probably all employees. Those are like the folks that would provide input into this. And then obviously thinking about the audience being the members. But if we do it, I think we could do the first three steps by survey. We would stretch this out as a little bit of work every board meeting. I don't think we need to sit and explain this for a long time. And then when we get to 4, 5, 6, and 7, we can break those into pieces over the next 3 or 4 months, however long we want, if we want to do this. I think it's important. I'm a huge vision mission person. I know not everybody is. I can tell you we've had members that are asked, what is your vision? And we don't have one set. And I think it is important for reasons that I actually had. By the way, I created all these slides and didn't say it, so I had to recreate them right before now. Vision statement is designed to inspire your employees and engage the imaginations of your member. So this really truly is, if we do this right, Crystal, when she talks to her department or Matt, when he talks to his department, it's supposed to inspire the employees, right? It's supposed to be everything that we do aligns with whatever your vision is. I said this one earlier to Matt and he laughed at me, but Southwest Airlines, their mission statement is Southwest connects people to what's important to their lives through friendly, reliable, and low cost air travel. That's their mission. It's sort of the same as kind of ours. Their vision is to become the world's most loved, most flown, and most profitable airline. IKEA is another one everyone knows about. IKEA's mission offers a wide range of well-designed, functionally home furnishing products at a low and accessible price. Their vision is to create a better everyday life for many people. So they're very aspirational like things. I think it's important to have, we've had members asking about this, but ultimately does the board want to spend time on it or not? Like I said, I think the first 3 steps would be done by survey, and then we break parts of it up over many meetings. So what we're landing on is the consensus of the board. We want to do this or not? I don't know that we need to vote. I'm just looking for, is this something that you guys want to spend some time on or not?
That survey we talked about,
10 to 5 questions, no longer than 15-minute survey. Like something I'll send out through,
Yeah.
what's it called? Survey Monkey.
And who would you send that to?
All of you and employees.
And employees.
I think it's a good start. Good idea.
And the survey is not like, it's like question, I mean, I could bring up some good questions for you. If they're out less than do that. It'd be questions like, what's important to you as far as what we do, right? How do we want to affect our surrounding world? Things like that. They're very like, I don't want to say wishy-washy because it is a vision statement, but like yours are going to be different than mine. We all have different mind thoughts in that, but I think it's important. Again, I don't want to spend time or waste your time if you don't think it is important. Just looking for hot yes, no's, maybes.
I say stick with the mission statement, but that's kind of, I'm a little bit more short-term thinker.
It's up to you guys. Think about it. Again, it'll take a lot of my time. That's why I'm saying I'm not gonna waste my time if the board doesn't want to do it.
If we were to vote tonight, who thinks we ought to go ahead and follow through with the mission statement?
I have a question.
Okay, take,
So this is going to lead us to where? Like,
what's going to come out of it?
if we did this, what's your hope that we would take away?
The hope is that we're inspiring employees, we're inspiring yourselves to follow. This is kind of everything that we do should follow under this. That's really what a vision is, right? And it drives discussions, and I can send you a ton of like benefits of the vision statement, right? But it should be driving discussion. It should be driving everything that we're doing. I mean, if our vision statement said so.
So how is that different? I'm just trying to figure this out.
Yeah, no.
How's that different than what our mission is?
I should have kept these in there and I would have had them all in there, but I hadn't. What's the difference between mission and, actually it is on here.
Vision is a higher level kind of.
No, it's not really higher level.
It's right there.
Right there. Your mission is, again, vision is forward thinking, right? It's how do we want to impact the world around us? How do we want to impact our membership and our community?
It's so simple to say we exist to provide existing and future reliable, affordable, friendly service. Because for me, I guess I get confused on vision and mission, but I would think our mission statement is to keep that going forward, for Matt's great grandchildren.
I honestly think this really needs to be thought through in the fact of if it's not going to drive, okay, so we're in a fork in the road, right? Does this board think that it has to drive action. If we're going to create a vision statement to not drive action, we're wasting our time. To me, what I think it should guide us from is, are we going to be an electric company and an electric company? Or are we going to be advocates? Are we going to leverage our business model and become advocates for, maybe we buy rural water, maybe we buy it. Are we more than just an electric company, or are we an electric company? And I know this could change depending on discussions on broadband and all that, but that's really what this is all. To me, are we bigger than just that, or do we want to just be that? That's what this is. What do we expect 20 years from now? I mean, do we want to be a 9-star who's providing quality of life for their communities? Huge quality of life for their communities? Or do we just want to be good at electricity? It's a train of thought that I think needs to come out in this vision statement. If the vision doesn't, if it's just something that we tell people, then it does us no good. It needs to be, if you want my opinion on what the vision statement is, it needs to have something about the fact that we should be advocates for rural America. We should be quality of life, we should be looking at these things. If we can leverage our business model, we are the only person in our community that has a nonprofit business model. We are local. We are locally owned. We are governed by our members. We have a unique business model that we can make a huge impact over what we're doing today. Do we want to leverage that or not? And that's not my call. That's the board. Not saying we're going to do rural water tomorrow or whatever. I'm just saying those are things that you'd be looking at if your vision is bigger than what your mission is today. But there's a school of thought, there's not a right or wrong answer. There's a school of thought that just says go do electric and be good at electric. Okay. Those are two different paths.
Would this be like a strategic planning kind of exercise?
We could do it like that, yeah.
But I mean, when we do the next strategic plan.
Are you saying do the vision statement at the next strategic plan? We could, yeah. That won't be for years. I mean, we haven't even planned the projects we did from the last one. We're working on that now.
But as Brett said, I mean, I think this is a process that we could work on gradually.
I mean, it
Over a
behooves
period of
me, and I know that everyone's going to say that it all depends on the business case for broadband, right? And I get that, but there are boards that are doing it that don't care about the business case. They're doing it because their members need it. I'm not advocating for that, and I'm not even close to that, but some people could have a vision statement that would guide them in that direction. That's just an example. I'm not an advocate of doing any type of project that doesn't have a business case, but boards do. But if it's something where I don't think we should just create this to say that we have a vision statement. I mean, it needs to create action. And if we want to wait until the next strategic plan, I'm fine with it. I'm bringing it up because we've been asked by members. You guys were asked.
Members have called to say, what's our vision?
You guys were all
Can
emailed.
you not just give them can you just give them our mission? That's what I've done. I honestly have. I'm like, this is our mission. We want to continue reliable, affordable electric for you.
But that doesn't answer what you want to do to your surrounding environments for
True.
30 years.
And our mission statement doesn't say electric.
No, it doesn't.
Just a service.
Service. That could be anything, I guess.
That was changed.
An hour for future. That saved a lot of time. We could just do that.
You already do propane and.
It would do. I think that's when it got changed, wasn't it?
Possibly.
Up to, this is
Well,
totally up to you.
I guess we don't have to make the decision
No.
tonight, but think about it. We'll bring it up at the next board meeting and.
Sounds like I.
All right, okay.
All right, we met Monday and I guess what everybody cares about, our distribution was $60,000. We set the price at 2.399, which is down from last year at 2.59. Brett, Matt, Crystal, Jenny, and then 3 members from Premier were there. Next meeting's January 22nd. If anybody else has anything to add?
I don't.
Any update on item number 9 in the agenda?
Yes, but we can't talk about that in this.
Will we talk about that later?
No.
It has to be an executive session.
Pardon?
It'll need to be an executive session.
Yeah, I figured, but
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Jason, Hoosier?
Hoosier, we had a board meeting on July the 10th. The minutes are included in your board pack. I'm going to call the order. There are 4 things that I want to report. Number 1, JCREMC, which is Johnson County, has asked the board at Hoosier to investigate moving them from a member to a customer. It will be a lengthy negotiation process likely, but the board did approve that action. So Hoosier and Johnson County will enter in negotiations to do that. Or see if that can be arranged. Number two, the Finance and Audit Committee recommended the board to retire 1998 patronage, which is the regular retirement, and the special retirement of 2018 patronage, which was, I was kind of with Matt, which will be a majority of how we will plan to in turn retire in December. If those retirements are approved by RUS, those disbursements will probably be made in the November, December timeframe. Number three, the major update on the project work plan with 4 new projects were approved at the board meeting. And lastly, there will be no August board meeting. There'll be a board forum, a retreat type activity August 14th and 15th that I'll be participating in. That's it.
Thank you. Nothing to report from IC, although the retreat is this weekend. And I believe Steve and myself are going. I don't know that anyone else is. So. We'll report more back then. Director training conferences.
I went to the Rush Shelby annual meeting on July 13th. Got there a little early, spent some time with the employees, got a lot of information just by introducing myself. They opened up with a lot of information. Jared's going to contact you regarding some of the voting issues they had at the end that they hadn't had before. Some other companies that gave them some options of a different vendor as far as an IT perspective. So it was really nice, and it was really nice again, really well attended, lined up, buses going around, and you kind of forget the area that Rush Shelby serves, you know, all the way to Brookville to Hamburg. So I knew a lot of more people than I even knew the year before. Music was great. They did the Chick-fil-A and the ice cream, same as always, and they had the booths like we did, but not as many. They had IHC and Hoosier Energy were there. It was nice, and Albert made just the comment, just a side note for Brett, maybe to share with Abby, all the directors and all the employees all have the exact same shirts on, so you knew who to talk to, like me coming in. I knew which, obviously we're either a member or director just by having that. So I got to talk with the directors quite a bit. So it was a good meeting. We had a great turnout. Very well attended.
Good.
So,
I went the same.
Oh, you went as well?
Yeah, I was the one.
I think
I can say the difference between ours and theirs, that our meal was much, much better. I say that whatever we did with meal and stuff, don't change it. So, yeah.
I didn't eat, but I had several comments from the first people that got there. They must have had maybe a little anxious to get them out ahead of time and like, look at this. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll just get an ice cream cone on the way out there.
Yeah.
But it was very, I mean, just like ours this year. I thought ours was really well attended this year too.
Yeah. Was theirs on a Friday as well?
Wednesday. No, Thursday the 13th. Started at, it started at 4, but at 3:30, the buses started loading and there was a line, a very long line.
Shuttle buses.
Shuttle buses. They used, it was Morristown and I think Waldron. Buses transferring from the parking. They parked at the
These are. How many members?
Manila Fire Department.
Yeah, they got about
11,000 with 9 directors. And it was really well attended too. Wednesday night worked out, Thursday night for that many people.
so. If you do plan to attend a neighboring annual event, you might make sure that, like Jeannie knows as well.
I did. She emailed me also.
Okay. Was she aware?
Yeah, my name was on, she had a list of directors that were going to be attending from different.
All right. Anything else that anybody had as far as training goes this month? So, wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. First and a second. We're adjourned, everybody. We're going to executive session. Let's take about 5 minutes real quick.